Hello, everyone, and welcome to another exciting commentary podcast. I'm Captain Logan, and with me today is Dan Torrey.
What's going on, everybody?
And Eric!
I do not promise excitement.
Oh, okay. Well, I promise excitement. I promise excitement because we're talking about a movie that I find very exciting. So you'll get excitement if you're watching the movie with us, even if we're not the exciting part.
Well, that's fair.
Today, we're going to watch and discuss Star Wars The Force Awakens, and Dan has been waiting to do this since before the movie came out, and really, every day, it's just okay, when are we doing this? When are we finally talking about this movie?
Guys, I pre-ordered the movie. It's here the day it just came out. Are we doing this?
Yeah, he does his unboxing video, and then sends me a message, and is like, okay, I did the unboxing, and I got it a day early. Can we do the commentary this evening?
It's in my DVD player right now. Are you ready?
Yeah, I've got it written to timestamp 0. Let's go.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what you guys are doing. I got my Kylo Ren helmet on, and I'm ready to go. I'm going to turn the voice changer on as soon as the commentary starts.
Do you really?
I have actually purchased one piece of merchandise from this film because it is there's a character in this movie that is the single greatest addition to the Star Wars universe that this movie has done, and I will point him out when we get there.
Well, my son
I can't wait to see this.
My son Jason would tell you that this movie added the single greatest character in Star Wars of all time, and that's Fasma.
You know, Fasma is related to my character in that Fasma gets Boba Fetted, but my favorite character is the new Boba Fett in that he does nothing, but he's so cool.
Eric, I don't know if you saw this, but when we did the Primetime Crisis Awards, we had Jason there, and the person he nominated for Best Actress of the Year, he didn't even look her up. He just said Fasma. And it was the greatest thing ever. Anyway, so we're gonna watch, of course, and talk about Star Wars: The Force Awakens. If you've never done one of these with us before, what we do is we create a commentary and a podcast simultaneously, so you can watch the film and listen to this as a commentary track, or you can listen to it as a podcast, and we will do our level best to provide some context for what we're talking about, and you can listen to this on its own. Go ahead and get your DVD, your Blu-ray, however you're going to watch it, your digital copy. I think this exists in 16 different media. Get it past all the menus, rigged up to timestamp 0, and get ready to press play whenever I say now. Is there anything anybody would like to say for any preamble before we get started?
I don't think so.
Oh, you know what? Before everybody presses play, we should all play the Fox logo on our phones.
Okay. Yeah, we can do that. Hold on, it's gonna take a second though.
I was joking. I don't feel like doing that.
Okay. I
meant the people at home, not us.
Just happen to have my phone right here, and
I also have my phone, but I don't know if that's gonna sync up well.
See, I'm just, I'm pretty agreeable, Eric. I'm like, that sounds like a bad idea, but let's do it. All right, is everybody ready?
I'm ready.
Okay, everybody, please press play right now.
You know, I like not having all those annoying flowers.
Yeah, flowers suck.
No, does anybody remember that Lucasfilm logo? For 10 years, there was that Lucasfilm logo where it was the boom, 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 it was the flower. Or was that THX? I think that was THX. I don't know. One of Lucas's companies used to open their movies like that.
I don't remember that, but I just love that we got you doing an impression on it. That's great. Hey, you guys, Luke Skywalker vanished.
I was very happy that I correctly identified that as the main plot of the movie by looking at the trailers.
Well, I remember there was a really big fan theory before it came out that was, or like a quote-unquote leaked script that said the movie was going to start with them finding Luke's hand holding the lightsaber, which didn't happen, cool. But that lightsaber is in this movie.
Well, and Dan had this whole theory that the lightsaber was going to be the big thing that they went after, that everybody was after, which is the case. But Dan's idea was much more elaborate about how the lightsaber would factor into the story, although it could go there later. I forget what exactly it was, Dan, but you had a whole thing about the lightsaber giving people like having abilities in it that I forget what exactly it was, but.
Well, my theory could still hold true because there still needs to be some sort of explanation as to why Rey is so powerful in the Force as she is after she touches the lightsaber. And in Star Wars, Force energy is stored residually in objects that are used by powerful Jedi and Sith. So a lightsaber that's been used by both Darth Vader and Luke Skywalker would have a lot of energy attached to it. And I'm assuming that's why she's able to do all the things she's able to do in the movie without any training, seemingly. But her past is really mysterious too. So we just don't know a whole lot about her at this point.
That might fix my biggest issue with this movie, because we'll get there. But my biggest complaint with this movie is the ending lightsaber fight.
So I did really appreciate the shadow symbolism at the beginning of this being kind of our new long arm of the Empire. I was kind of hoping it would open with something like that, and it does that. And it's not just a thing that's there. It's talked about as a shadow that reaches across space. Later in the movie it talks about that. But the first time I saw it, I couldn't help but think that looks like a necktie. And once I saw that, I couldn't unsee it, and I was like, now I want that somehow as a necktie.
One of the things I really like about this opening scene is how dark and intimidating they make the stormtroopers look. Like, they're completely competent in this scene, and they genocide an entire village. It's kind of dark.
And that instantly makes the First Order seem a little bit more intimidating.
It does.
And then they put mustaches on their stormtrooper outfits, and then they took it away.
We've already talked over Dan's favorite line in the entire movie.
It's the line that I think sums up the entire movie, or at least my feelings on it. I don't think this movie makes things right, but I think this movie begins to make things right.
And you can't tell me that wasn't put there intentionally.
No, it's totally put there intentionally. Although, I gotta say, I really hope there's, like, flashbacks and backstory with Max von Sydow, because he's kind of a really big actor that I really like, and I was excited when he was cast. And then this is all we have of him.
He's already gotten a little bit in the comics.
Oh, cool. Well, I've heard that he's like a Force priest, which I really like. One of the things I really like about this movie is that they go back to the idea of the original trilogy that kind of isn't there in the pre-trilogy. That the Force is kind of a religion, whereas in the pre-trilogy it's just like knights with superpowers. In the original trilogy, there were other people that believe in the Force, and so I like the idea of him being a Force priest or whatever.
Yeah, and Maz Kanata is kind of the same way. There were some deleted scenes in the movie where she uses the Force to stop debris collapsing on them and stuff in the bar that got cut. But yeah, she's apparently Force sensitive too, but not trained as a Jedi.
Yeah, well, they make it seem like, just in the theatrical version that we have here, and I haven't looked at the deleted scenes yet, but they make it seem like she understands the Force and is really wise about it. But when she says, I'm no Jedi, I assume she wasn't Force sensitive, but just was around a lot of Force users.
Yeah, that's why she can look at people's eyes, and she talks about seeing the same eyes in different people and stuff. That specific deleted scene I mentioned isn't in the Blu-ray. There's actually a lot of deleted scenes that they didn't put on the Blu-ray for whatever reason, and most of the deleted scenes that they put on the Blu-ray are kind of disappointing, to be honest. I watched through all of them, and they're not really all that consequential to the story.
I hate it when that happens, because I also have watched deleted scenes.
Yeah.
I hate it when you hear about all of these great deleted scenes, and then when you get the Blu-ray, you're like, oh, none of these are those scenes.
Yeah, I mean, there's one where Kylo Ren goes to the Millennium Falcon and he just says Han Solo, and then that's the end of the scene. But I mean, it's just cool seeing Han Solo's son on the Falcon, but it's not really a scene that needed to be in the movie.
Okay, so Dan, I don't know if you know this, but in about 2 minutes, I'm going to complain a lot. Just give me a second.
Oh, okay.
Because one of my biggest issues with the film happens soon, and I'm just gonna give me a minute to get that out there.
Before that happens, can I just mention, and I guess...
Can I talk about Kylo Ren's introduction, too? Because I want to talk about that, because I love it.
Yeah, totally.
I just want to mention that I like BB-8 and expected to not like BB-8.
Exactly the same.
Yeah,
I thought he was going to be an artificially contrived, oh, we love him because he's cute, which he totally is, but I do love him because he's cute. He's a better R2-D2. I didn't do the commentaries with you guys. As I've gotten older, I dislike R2-D2 more and more. I think he's kind of a jerk.
I think that trash compactor that drives around is kind of a jerk face.
Well, yeah.
I love the score in this scene. Like, Kylo Ren's theme is one of my favorite musical arrangements that John Williams did for the movie. It's so good.
I've heard people.
I really like the. Sorry.
No, that's good. I've heard people kind of make fun of the bloody hand thing and be like, that just happened so you can tell which stormtrooper is the one you're supposed to follow. I think it's a cool device.
I love it because we don't usually get blood in Star Wars.
See, the reason I love...
And I don't think it's too contrived either because, again, we've only had the first act of this story, so we don't really know, how much we're going to understand, when and how much we're going to understand about why he becomes as self-aware as he does when it happens. But that seems to be a plot point. That, like, there's a reason that in that moment he seems to become aware. So
yeah, I've heard people complain that his change is too quick, and I'm like, this is literally the first time we see him. What do you mean it's too quick?
We don't have...
You don't know what happened beforehand.
Well, we also don't have all the information yet. I mean, like, there's too much that we can't read yet because we only have the first act of the story. And this is the single... Well, it's one of the coolest things in the whole movie.
It's really cool. And then we're, for the rest of the movie, told that Kylo Ren's not that powerful. And this is the, like, most powerful thing we've ever seen somebody do. Even Darth Vader didn't stop a blaster.
That's a complaint I have, too. I think that's weird.
Okay, so here it is, man.
Okay.
Sorry. Wait, I have to wait for it to happen to complain about it. See, I like that line. Because he's snarky.
You talk first, I talk first?
Yeah, I like that one. This is not okay. You're not allowed to make fun of his mask or how he talks. No one makes fun of how Darth Vader breathes. Like, that's just how people dress in this universe. It's like a universe-breaking, like, self-referential joke that really bothers me every time I see it. You can't make jokes like that in this universe. Okay.
Yeah, it didn't really bother me too much. We talked over it, but I really liked Kylo Ren's introduction in this because it mirrors Han Solo's introduction in the original trilogy, and it kind of foreshadows the reveal that it's his son later. Like, when we're introduced to Han Solo in A New Hope, he kills someone amid witty banter, and that's kind of like the feel you get for the character. And Kylo Ren's introduction is the same exact thing. I thought that was really cool.
Good point.
So my biggest issue with this movie walking out of the theater was I felt like I still didn't know anything. Like, I felt like I'd spent a year speculating on all of these things, and I still didn't know anything. And Max von Sydow is the first bit of this movie where, like, I feel like that. Where, like, he has this past with Kylo Ren, and I was like, oh, when we find out who Kylo Ren is, I'm going to know who Max von Sydow is. And I don't.
Yeah.
Like, we never go back to Max von Sydow and find out, like, why he was important.
One of the things that you guys mentioned earlier, too, about the Force powers that Kylo Ren has, I think it's going to be interesting to see what the Knights of Ren are, because I have a feeling that Snoke might have techniques in the Force that we just had, like you talked about the religious thing. It's just that he teaches Kylo Ren different Force techniques than
it's not even
the
that
Jedi
he's more
Sith.
powerful. He just has different abilities.
Yeah, exactly.
And we talked over it, but that shot where BB-8 is, like, rolling away, that shot, am I alone? That feels like a special edition, like edition with that little alien head coming up. That feels like a Lucas thing.
What did you guys think of John Boyega in this? I know a lot of people like him, but I've also heard people say that they thought he was a little too comedic for Star Wars.
And then he seemed too modern. I know Eric's complaining about that a little bit. There's a moment or two, but for the most part, I think he doesn't.
Yeah, there's one moment in particular.
I think it's always in the script. I don't think it's his fault.
No. There's one moment in particular where I think he's a little too modern. I like Finn a lot. I think he's a lot of fun. I need more about his backstory to explain why someone who is, like, abducted and raised as a child soldier is as jokey as he is.
Yes.
But I think he's a lot of fun and not... I mean, the thing that, like, everybody kind of says is, like, he's not like any Star Wars character we've ever had before.
Well, and Finn is kind of the raised like that too. I mean, I think the thing I was most impressed with this movie is I think that it's almost inventing new archetypes by mixing archetypes, and the problem with trying to read this movie right now is, as I keep saying, it's the first act. We don't have the rest of it, and so that all could be really problematic later. It does seem really strange that he has as much of a personality as he does, and that he diffuses tense situations with humor and all of that, and it feels very authentic for Star Wars, but that all came from a place with other characters, like they were regular people who grew up in regular homes and things, and that guy was a programmed minion up until 5 minutes ago.
Yeah, so it's this weird thing where like I have an issue with it, but it doesn't bother me because I enjoy his presence. Like it's a weird place for me.
What do you think, Dan?
Yeah, I'm with you, Cap. Like when I watched A New Hope for the first time, like, you come away from that movie and you don't have really any idea about what the Jedi are. You don't really have, like, almost everything that's cool of the Star Wars universe is shrouded in mystery, even by the end of that movie. And I think all of the new things we introduce in this movie are the same way.
I don't agree with that. I feel like you have a really good sense of what the Jedi are from A New Hope. They're magic knights.
But you don't know, like, how the Order works, like, what their goals and intentions are now.
It doesn't
like
exist
all of those.
anymore. I mean, like, you have one guy who, unless you get really forced with your exposition, is only going to answer the questions that Luke Skywalker asks him.
But here we have the Knights of Ren. I've been waiting a year to find out what they are, and they get one mention.
How much did you know about the Sith at the end of A New Hope?
Nothing.
Well, none, but they didn't even say the word Sith. I didn't even know they existed. I knew that the Knights of Ren existed.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's you have a little bit of knowledge there, but I'm just saying, like, just like the original movies, they're not telling you everything at once. Is my point.
Yeah, and the question is how well they're balancing that, and I do think that it's a difficult balancing act in that they manage it for the most part, but there are places where I think that they're more cryptic than they have to be, unless I see all three movies, and then I don't feel that way animoore.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
and
a
so
lot of this comes
I'm
from
really holding out. Oh, can I throw out my symbolic theory real quick about the one son?
Okay.
Sure.
I think because she's on a planet that looks a lot like Tatooine. That shot is clearly homaging the two sun shot at the beginning of A New Hope, and there it's one sun, and I think that's foreshadowing that it's a foreshadowing clue that she is definitely not Kylo Ren's twin sister, and that they didn't do the twin thing like the original expanded universe.
Oh, interesting.
How come she doesn't put a line through her tallies? She makes those tallies, but if she wants to real quick check how many days she's been there, she's gonna have to count. Then she's gonna lose track of things.
Eric,
she's gonna have to
this is
restart
a long
counting.
time ago. They just haven't invented that system yet. Like,
okay.
Later on, it just gets a whole lot more efficient. It's a long time ago.
One of the interesting things about Daisy Ridley's performance in this movie, I was reading, stuff from production about the movies when it was being made, and supposedly J.J. Abrams had a big problem with Daisy Ridley on set. She was acting too wooden, and he didn't think the movie was going to work, obviously, because she's the main character.
Oh, man.
And eventually they got it, they got her to, have a performance and stuff, but initially she was, like, maybe not going to, or wreck the entire
thank God
movie.
George Lucas wasn't there, because he would have just said, yeah, you're doing great.
Yeah.
So they might have replaced her. We might have had a situation like Back to the Future.
Yeah, potentially. I don't know what they would have done, but I'm glad with keeping her, because I think what they got out of her is great in this movie.
Well, it's interesting because for both her and John Boyega, I really feel like this is like a star-making movie in a way that I don't feel like we have star-making movies anymore.
Yes.
When I saw Thor, I like Chris Hemsworth, but Chris Hemsworth hasn't gone on and done lots of great things. We have people that become characters. I feel like both of these actors arrived in this movie.
I'm with you, I mean, with both of them, but especially her. She seems like an instant star. And Dan, it's interesting that you mentioned that Abrams had issues with her early on because, of course, they get along really well, and he just cast her in another movie. They talk all the time about how much they like each other.
Yeah, that's right. And she, as a matter of fact, I think has been in talks to play Lara Croft, and they're trying to get another Tomb Raider.
I want that so bad. That's
yeah, because I feel like she looks the part. She's got the accent and everything. She'd make a great Lara Croft.
I was instantly smitten with her.
Yeah, she's instantly likable.
Yeah. She's instantly likable, and she has a look that's all her own. She seems completely original. Like, just as an actress, like, she just has this...
And she feels like a Star Wars character instantly.
Yes, yeah. She's got this really distinct, thing about her. Okay, I don't dislike Poe Dameron, but I do not understand the love for this character yet. He gets so little to do. I don't know why people are so in love with this guy. I think the performance is really good. He's fun and all, but he seems like totally contrary to the other two characters we were just talking about. He is generic pilot guy.
I don't think he is. I'm. It is all the actor and not the writing. Right down to the fact that Poe Dameron's not supposed to come back at the end of this movie. That was because the actor was like, no, I've already done a movie where I was the cool guy for the first act and then died. I don't want to die in this movie. So Poe was supposed to die in this film in the crash, which is why that crash is so weird.
Yeah, it's weird.
I think he's just so charismatic. I think he's kind of like Han Solo. Where, like, just the moment, he shows up and he starts talking, he just has so much charisma.
My problem, and this is just an experience thing, and, I'm just reporting the experience I have with it. I can't explain why. It took a second viewing before I realized the guy at the opening was the same character. I didn't even realize that was the same guy.
I didn't have that because I was waiting for him to come back because I thought he was so much fun.
See, that's what I'm saying, is that we had totally different experiences. Does anybody else think that Kylo Ren's mask makes him look like an anteater?
I love his mask when he has the hood on. Whenever he takes it off, it looks like a baby Darth Vader mask.
I mean, it's not a problem. I think it's cool, but at the point where I went, wait a minute, it shaped a little bit like an anteater face. I could never, look past that again.
No, that guy has an anteater face.
That's Simon Pegg.
No, not him. The one behind her.
That guy does have an anteater face, but yeah, 1/4 portion guy. That's Simon Pegg in a fat suit.
Yeah,
and he's hilarious.
We'll talk about it later, I guess, but I kind of want to make my case for why Kylo Ren's my favorite character in this movie when we get more, because he's one of my favorite Star Wars villains ever. I think now he's great. I like him a lot.
I don't want to get off on a rant here. But I think he just arbitrarily decides how many portions a thing is worth.
He definitely does. Well, we have proof of it. She's like, well, it was worth more last week. What's wrong with you? And he's like, well, I'm trying to run a business here, and I'm working for the First Order, and I'm trying to get a droid. So, lay off me. And I don't know what that guy's actual name is. I want his action figure so badly to say 1/4 portion guy.
So we haven't talked about this yet, but the thing that I absolutely love about this film that was 100% the right decision, and we'll get an even better example in a couple of minutes when they get in the TIE Fighter. I love the set direction of this film. I love that it looks like the Star Wars 70s technology slightly moved up. It doesn't look like Star Trek. Where the new Star Trek, where it's super sleek and cool and looks like a cool new future, it looks like Star Wars.
Yeah, I agree. I love the updated Stormtrooper costumes, especially the helmets, because as I'm sure you guys know, the original helmets were designed to look like skulls, or were supposed to, and I think the new helmets invoke that look even more so. It's cool.
Since we're talking about aesthetics, can I also say that putting just a small amount of red on a TIE Fighter instantly makes TIE Fighters look cooler?
And painting them black is awesome, too.
I guess they weren't black before, were they? That was a...
No, they were
gray. Yeah.
Okay, so a slight complaint that I'm going to get to later. Where are all of the other kinds of TIE Fighters? There's no TIE Bombers, there's no TIE Interceptors. We only have the regular TIE Fighters.
Well, see, the First Order just streamlines everything, Eric. They got one thing for
smaller and has less resources in the Empire too.
Okay, well, spoilers for a slight complaint I'm gonna have.
Sense. Sorry, what? Sorry, what?
Spoilers for a slight complaint I'm gonna have later. but where are the Y-wings? Where are the A-wings? Where are the B-wings? We just have X-wings.
See, this rebellion is much smaller than the last
I think... Okay, I have a prediction about this movie. I think in 20 years, everyone is going to think this movie is just okay. Because I feel like this movie was 100% strategically designed to be released now. I think a lot of the things in this movie, when you watch all 9 films together, you're going to be like, but I just saw all of this stuff.
I think before we can really make that determination, and I will try not to make that point 55 more times. But I totally hear where you're coming from. At the same time, just watching it now and shortly after it came out, it's every bit as good as I thought it might have been, or better. And it's just hard not to be excited that there's a new Star Wars movie I like. So like, it's gonna be hard to get myself out of that.
This is the moment where I came to love Poe Dameron.
But when you say
it's this scene.
When you say it's made for now, do you just mean in like
there are gags and references there are gags and references to the first 3 films that only play right now because those films are 30 years ago and will not play in 20 years when you're watching all of the Star Wars films together. I don't think a lot of the homage stuff will hold up as well when you're watching it all together as one story. And stuff like, we only have X-Wings because that's the only thing anybody actually remembers. So it universally feels a little inconsistent.
Just like you.
Sorry, what, Dan?
I remember the other ships too, but like, I don't know, for me, I like the characters so much in this movie that all of the homage stuff is cool, but I think all of the stuff with the characters and the introductions we get to them here are good enough that I think it will hold up.
I really like the characters. That's the big thing about this movie, is I really like the characters. I have problems with other things around the film. I really like Poe, Rey, and Finn. I'm open to really liking Kylo Ren.
This is one of the best instant friendships I've seen on screen, probably.
It's one of the most believable.
And it's crazy how believable it is, since I still am not sure if I'm later on going to be able to believe that he has as much charisma and personality as he does, Finn. But like, when he names him, that's a really fun, touching moment.
Okay, I actually have a theory on why Finn is as jokey as he is. That is a completely like out there oddball theory.
Yeah.
But because he is raised as like a child soldier
thing.
To have a...
he pops up into the camera trailer thing. Sorry, go ahead.
To have a really malleable personality, he essentially immediately gets imprinted on by the first person he meets, and so he's jokey because the first person he ever hung out with was Poe Dameron. That is my no prize explanation for why Finn is jokey, is because he essentially is an amoeba and just absorbs Poe Dameron's personality.
The only problem I have with that is that personality seems to be almost fully formed before that happens.
No, that's totally fair. I'm just trying to no prize
I like
why
that.
A child soldier would be so jokey.
I really like
Why did he leave his jacket? How did he get thrown from it without his jacket?
I wonder that too. The only thing I could figure is that he took it off for some reason.
Well, no, because he wakes up, he says he just woke up and was thrown from the thing.
Yeah, so how did he lose his jacket?
I mean, I know the answer. He wasn't dead when they shot, or he was dead when they shot the scene, so, like, he didn't just get thrown.
Yeah, that whole thing is really awkward, and I wish that they somehow wrote it to match, but...
They patch it in the novelization.
Of course.
Also, all of the political things that I have issues with, because they're super vague in this movie, a lot of that gets patched in the novelization, too.
Do you think that do you think that we're using that as a little bit of a crutch, where we're working in a thing where the guy making it knows that everything Star Wars is canonical, so if it doesn't make it in the movie, it's not a big deal because you can put it because somebody else will put it somewhere? Like, do you think that there's that any of that is conscious? Is conscious?
I don't think so. I think a lot of the political stuff was probably taken out of the movie because Disney didn't want to have people comparing it to the prequels.
Yeah, I also agree. I think they cut out a lot of political stuff because they were afraid that everyone complained about the politics in the prequels. They just cut too much.
Yeah, the problem with that is, they cut it all the way to bare bones. Like, there's too much of just status quo we don't understand.
Yeah. And it's not nearly as simple as A New Hope, because you could argue that A New Hope doesn't give you all of the information, but at least in the New Hope, it is just there are bad guys that are in control of everything, and there are good guys fighting them. And that's all you need to know. Here, there are at least 3 factions.
Yeah, it's more complicated than that, and we know that there is an established, more stable government that's not the Empire, but then there's also a rebellion that seems to be underground that's going against a smaller thing that's not the Empire, but is, for some reason, not just the standing army of the current prevailing governmental system. That's confusing if they don't explain it to you in the movie.
They talk a little bit about it in the movie, but it's very short. So the Resistance is the military wing of the Republic, and Princess Leia runs it. That's why she's a general.
That's not exactly how the novelization does it.
Oh, interesting.
In the novelization, it straight up says that the New Republic is more interested in trade negotiations than dealing with the First Order. So basically, the New Republic became exactly what the Old Republic was. And so Leia kind of leaves and once again kind of starts her own thing to fight the First Order.
Yeah, you have to point that exposition out to me, because I don't know where that is.
General Hux talks about it. He says the government that supports the Resistance, that's what they're going to destroy when they power up the weapon.
Okay, but is it
so they are
consistent then? Because isn't there another place where they talk about it like it's underground and secret?
Not really.
Yeah, when I just watched the movie, I got the impression that they were saying that statement was as if like they were underground supporting the Resistance, but publicly not.
Oh yeah,
that's how.
But see, that's what I was confused about. Was I didn't understand why there was a resistance to a thing that's not the prevailing government. Like that seems to be kind of contrary to how things usually go. Where it seems like the Resistance is the First Order. It's just an evil backwards resistance.
The way I could probably best explain it in a real world term would be France in World War II, where the government surrendered to the Nazis, but there were still people fighting back.
Oh, okay.
That would be the best.
What the real world equivalent of that would be. And I'm not a history guy, so I just don't know. But I couldn't really fit it any place.
Yeah, that would be the best parallel I would be able to show.
Do you guys? Did you guys wonder in the theater why she immediately is so helpful to this droid, considering that in Star Wars we usually don't treat droids as people?
No, but I was really curious why she immediately ran after someone and hit him in the face with a stick because a droid said he stole something. Like, that felt like an overreaction.
This droid says you stole a jacket, and I'm the police in these parts.
I'm the jacket police.
I really hope they give Rey a double-bladed lightsaber when she becomes a Jedi, because she has the staff here.
Yeah, that would be really cool and a really unique protagonist thing.
Yeah, I agree. You think of that as evil.
Well, I mean, if you've only seen the movies, but in expanded universe stuff, there's Jedi that have double-bladed lightsabers that are good guys all the time.
Oh, okay, but I'm just saying, your general audience is going to look at a double-bladed lightsaber and immediately think that belongs to bad guys. So
right,
it will seem like a subversion when you give it to her. Like, I'm always going to watch these from the perspective of the only things that matter are the movies. Like, I don't mean to say that that's the case. I just mean, like, looking at it from a general audience perspective, what are most people going to think of when they see that? They're going to think that's sinful.
Well, and obviously, we're now in this weird place where almost anything Dan and I say is, well, this is how it is in the Star Wars universe, is no longer how it is. So...
So we talked over what I think is still probably the funniest line in the movie when Finn says, this is what we look like.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good one.
I absolutely love that. Is that too modern, Eric?
No, but Stop Taking My Hand is a little modern. I'm not sure about it.
What's modern about it?
Because she's a girl and she can stand for herself and she's independent. And I don't know if that's why he's taking her hand. I don't know. It's weird.
I don't know. Leia was always kind of doing that kind of stuff in A New Hope. I don't think it's all that different for the Star Wars universe.
I didn't view it that way, and then I saw, like, every review, someone was like, oh, I love that she tells him not to take his hand. I was like, oh, is that what that scene is? Because now I kind of don't like it.
See, I don't think it's necessarily a gender thing, though, and I like that they're not pushing it and making a big deal out of it, where you can kind of read it either way. Like, she's just a really independent person. Like I see it as just he's trying to be the hero, be it because she's a girl or just because he wants to be a hero. It kind of doesn't matter.
Because he's an amoeba Podameron.
Yeah, and so she's like, "Don't take my hand. I can handle it myself." I love it.
True. As we go through this, Eric.
I love it when he wakes up, like he momentarily gets knocked out and wakes up and asks her if she's okay.
Yeah, no,
that's hilarious.
Yeah, that's.
And the look on her face is priceless when she was like, "Wait, you're the one that might need medical attention."
I love that. Well, first of all, I like the garbage joke. Because I didn't see it coming. I love that once we get inside the Millennium Falcon, it looks like it's the set from 30 years ago. Like, no one has cleaned this thing.
Yeah.
This is super, super convenient, though, yeah?
Yeah.
That the ship just happens
really
to be
convenient.
there. And,
it's also...
We pan the camera, and there it is. And, like, it's a big money shot that everybody's clapping about in the theater, but I'm just going... Why is that there? And that seems pretty convenient.
Well, and there's also this thing, and it's like a backstory thing. So, like, again, like, maybe we'll find out later. She's a really good pilot for someone that's never flown anything. I buy that she's an amazing mechanic because she works on things, but I get the impression she's never actually flown anything.
Well, she does say that she's a pilot when they're running, so she does have experience.
Maybe you're right. Yeah, I guess.
Yeah, she says that.
She says those words. Those words come out of her mouth.
By the way, I wish...
In that order.
Sometimes I wish I was a droid, because I wish I had, like cords that popped out of myself if I fell from a high place.
Okay, so this is my favorite piece of retro technology, because that was the thing that I would expect them to replace, is, like, stuff like how the targeting computer looks like. The actual, like, what's on display. I love that it's just what it looked like in the original trilogy.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome.
Well, the thing is, in the Millennium Falcon, it should look the same because there's no reason that would have been updated.
Well, we don't know how long ago Han Solo lost the Millennium Falcon.
Well, I guess it could have been retrofitted, but it clearly hasn't been.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying that whatever it looked like before... Oh, there's the thing with the wires. Whatever it looked like before is what it should look like now, because it's the Millennium Falcon. Like, you can get away with updating things with, like, the TIE fighters and stuff, because they're new TIE fighters.
Mm.
That's all I'm saying. But I'm glad that we didn't update too much, and that we're not even thinking about it like 70s technology versus technology now. We're just thinking about how much time has passed in this world, and I think a lot of thought went into that, and like how much it makes sense to update in the 30 years, thinking about the political situation and stuff, like how much innovation would really happen. I'm glad the First Order doesn't have like a lot of really fancy new technology, but that's why I also somewhat question the new Death Star.
Yeah, I've got issues with the new Death Star.
That's my least favorite thing in the whole movie.
Okay, there are certain things that this movie did that when they announced this movie, I was like, I really hope that they don't do these specific things, because the EU drove these things into the ground, and surely they will have learned their lesson from the EU, that the two things that you do not do is have remnants of the Empire and build a new Death Star. And we have remnants of the Empire, and we built a new Death Star. And the remnants of the Empire, they made work. Not so much the new Death Star.
Well,
things about the new Death Star we can talk about when we get there, but...
I love that it's a planet.
You would have to have remnants of the new... I don't understand how that's a thing.
Well, that the bad guys would be really the Empire again.
Why is that a problem?
Because I've read it across like 10 years worth of novels.
So you guys just have such a different perspective on this than me. I'm a guy that just goes to the movies.
Yeah, it's one of these. There are certain things about this movie that are not criticisms of the film. They are fan things, and that's one of them, is that I was done with a lot of the things in this movie before the New Jedi Order happened.
Yeah. See, Star Wars is a unique thing in that everything is canonical and people pay attention to it and they care about it. Most people aren't used to that. I mean, it's not like that with Star Trek.
Yeah, no. Well, and it's... I mean,
none
that's
of that
just
stuff counts.
Of,
if it's on screen, it counts. It's one of the things I love about Star Trek is I know what counts.
Of philosophy between Lucas and Roddenberry. Roddenberry said these things don't count. Lucas Well, I mean, he kind of flip-flopped, but initially he said these things count.
Yeah. It was easier in the early 90s when there wasn't as much of it. And it's easier now because there's not quite as much of it, but there will be a lot more of it.
Yeah, but now there's actually, like, people paying attention.
Yeah, and I say I'm just a guy that watches movies. I'm not anymore. I actually pay attention to the current expanded universe. I probably read 50% of it.
Yeah, you're probably way more, like, expert at the new Star Wars universe than I am.
Because and Dan certainly, because, I mean, I've read more of the comics than Dan, but it's just a matter of time. He's collecting in trade. Dan, are you still with us?
Yeah.
I've read all the novels that they've put out, too.
But you've read the novels, and I haven't read one of those yet.
Some of them
is
are
Aftermath
good.
as bad as everyone says it is?
Aftermath is pretty bad, except that it's pretty clear that Thrawn shows up at the end, so I was kind of happy about that.
Cap, that's the book that I told you that is told in present tense, third person.
So I love this scene. I love the temper tantrum thing. I know some people don't like that about this character. I say once again, just wait, because I think everybody's going to love this later on. I could be wrong. I don't know. But I love that this is his thing, that he just freaks out on rooms.
One of the things I like about it is it's kind of the complete opposite of Darth Vader. Like, Darth Vader's always calm, cool, and collected, and Kylo Ren's just completely unhinged.
Okay, so we just had a thing that is... All right, a lot of this is J.J. Abrams, because J.J. Abrams has openly said his style of storytelling is the mystery box, which is you spend an entire story talking about a mystery box, and then you finally open the box and the contents blow your mind. But it's J.J. Abrams, so the contents, like, never blow your mind. So we have scenes like this where he just says, "What girl?" It is never mentioned again. We never have... And then later he says to Rey, he's like, "Oh, you're that girl that everyone's been talking about." That's the only time anybody ever mentioned a girl in this movie. To him. Like, it's this very strange thing where, like, I don't know if it's supposed to be telling me something about their relationship. Is he supposed to know who she is?
I think it's pretty clear that they're hinting at future things, but that's just me.
But I feel like it could be really obvious, or it could be I'm just reading into that because I just assume that everything is there for a reason.
Yeah, I mean, I never read into that as he has any idea who that is or anything, although you're right, like, the reaction is so sudden, it seems like maybe it's supposed to mean something. Yeah, I guess it is maybe a little bit confusing. I just saw it as, there's information to be had, and there wasn't any information before. So now I'm going to run off. But then why does he have to choke him?
Yeah. That's what I was saying. Like, I think it's clearly an indication that Kylo Ren has some sort of idea that, like, there was a girl on Jakku that was Force sensitive, because he wouldn't react that strongly to it. To, like, hearing.
But I also don't think the movie tells me that again. Like, I don't feel like we ever follow up on it.
Well, Maz Kanata also says who's the girl when they're in the bar later on.
Well, but that's just because
what
there's
Eric's
a girl
saying
there.
is he should be making a big deal out of the fact that he found her later, and it seems like now it's just some person he picked up.
Well, he says you're the girl everyone's been talking about, as if he doesn't know who she is. It's just like she's a big deal now.
But to be fair, that's one of those sticky things where you have to look at it almost like an unreliable narrator, where now he's talking to her. So what does he want her to get from the discourse they're having?
I think that might be given a little bit more credit than it deserves, but we'll see when we get there.
It might be, but I don't know is all I'm saying. But I mean, like, but I also...
Which is one of the things I hate about this movie,
giving it
is
too
that
much
this
credit,
is a movie that lives or dies in its sequels.
Yeah, no, that's true, but I don't have a problem with that, and a lot of people do. A lot of people are like, well, it shouldn't be just the first act of a trilogy because Star Wars wasn't, but the difference is it knows it's going to get more
I have a problem with it because I'm a fan. And I hate that I spent 2 years not getting stories between Return of the Jedi and this. And then when I finally got here, they didn't tell me anything. So I'm going to spend 2 more years not getting stories between Return of the Jedi and this. It's entirely fan rage. It's not.
Enough that I am I think in more of a fun way, like, really irritated that I don't have more. You know what I mean? Where I'm like, yay, it made me care so that I can have this gut-wrenching thing for the next 2 years.
But I followed the Star Wars universe before this. You just got into it. It's all fun for you. I had everything blown out, and now I need something to fill that void in my heart.
See, I've been following it too, and it doesn't bother me as nearly as much as it does for you. I want it.
I want it now, and they're not giving it to me.
just
Someone is
remake
going to
her.
take
I
that
think-
audio clip and make an inappropriate video with it.
I don't think, switching gears for a minute, that Harrison Ford's performance could possibly have been better.
I love him in this movie. He's so good.
Well,
I was kind of worried that Harrison Ford would phone it in a little bit.
Me too.
But he steps right back into the role at using the same Han Solo mannerisms and things. Yeah, it's great.
well, they finally told him that they would kill Han Solo like he always wanted. So I think that might have been part of it.
It
Yeah.
was, but he still could have not given us this. Like, I feel like, and yeah, I mean, they paid him an obscene amount of money, and maybe we should expect that, but like, I don't know. I feel like he treated us a little bit. The way he hams it up is exactly the right kind of ham.
Well, it's kind of a bummer because if you see interviews, he kind of says he just did this for the money, and it doesn't feel like that.
No, it doesn't. But that tells you how good of an actor he is.
If he did
I've
just
seen
do this for the money.
I've seen conflicting things with him. Like, I've seen interviews where he seems to indicate that, Eric, but I've also seen ones where he said that he really liked, the story that JJ came up with. And it's possible that he was just saying that in the press junket in the film because it was like, if I say that I only did this for the money, Disney will chop my head off. I mean, who knows,
Yeah, I've seen him in he's consistent about it in late night talk show interviews, and those seem to be like much more what he really thinks.
Well, but at the same time, he's someone that really doesn't, I don't want to say doesn't like the fan bases. He's not a part of that world. He's never wanted to be a part of that world.
Right.
He could be saying that just so no one is like, oh, he loved being in Star Wars, let's invite him to, the next 9 Comic-Cons.
But
he doesn't want to.
I saw him on Conan, and it was almost like it almost watched like a blindsiding kind of thing, where he's like, "Oh yeah, I did it because I got paid," and just the way he laughed after that, it seemed really genuine. Like so when he gives this good of a performance, it seems like he's just being professional. Like his
except that I've seen him in other movies, and he's not always this good.
No, he's not always this good, but like
I love these guys' designs. Sorry.
But like I guess you just have to ask why is he professional now and he wasn't before? But I think he did it because he got the paycheck and because he knew he wouldn't have to come back and do it again, and he also decided that he liked something about what they were doing and gave a really professional performance. Like, I think Dan's right that I think he liked what Abrams did with it. I think he still doesn't care that much about Star Wars.
Yeah, I've always gotten the impression he cares more about Indiana Jones.
Sorry,
than Star
Dan,
Wars.
go ahead.
Sorry.
In interviews, he always talks about how he never thought Han Solo was all that interesting of a character. Like, he never thought playing the archetype that Han Solo is to be an interesting part for him. Not that he didn't like the character, but it wasn't like something that he could sink his teeth into and really understand the inner workings of the character. That's kind of the way he described it in interviews before this movie came out. And he wanted to be killed because he thought that the character, all he had left to contribute to the story was a tragic sacrifice. And I think he gets it in this movie, which is awesome. I mean, maybe that's why he, didn't phone it in this time.
And he just gets such fun material to play with.
What was the second time? I think is the most Han Solo line he gets.
Yeah, that's great. Do you guys agree with a lot of people that this is one of the big criticisms of this movie, that all of this is kind of unnecessary and just here to give Han Solo some Han Solo stuff?
I don't have a problem with this. I have a problem with the Rathtar, which is just the same thing J.J. Abrams did in the Star Trek 09, when for no reason on the ice planet we have to have a scene where Kirk gets chased by a giant monster.
Which is worse there because it feels like he wishes he was making a Star Wars movie, and here at least he's making a Star Wars movie.
And the Rathtar doesn't feel like a Star Wars creature. I don't like the design of the Rathtar. This whole thing feels like padding. And I don't like that Rey unlocks him on accident. So, yeah, no, I don't. I feel like you can cut all of this and you don't lose anything.
What do you think, Dan?
I mean, the only thing that the scene starts to establish is the running gag that Chewbacca's bowcaster is really powerful and we'll talk about it later on as to why that's important for the final lightsaber fight, obviously. But yeah, I don't know. I think it's a fun action scene. I don't really have a problem with it.
But it's unnecessary. Although I do love Han Solo
thing. I kind of expected this sort of thing, big.
I love Han Solo throwing that guy into the Wrath Jar. That's awesome. Yeah. And that's Han Solo.
We are with both of those groups that are after Han Solo. We're doing that Star Wars thing of ethnic stereotypes.
Well, one of them is the cast of the Raid.
What is that?
Oh, the Raid is two, I want to say Korean, I might be wrong. They're two like insane action movies. Like when Dredd came out, everyone was like, "Oh, well, it's kind of like The Raid."
Oh, okay.
They're just these insane like gunfight in a enclosed environment movies that a lot of people love. And for some reason, just the cast of The Raid are those ones. I don't know who the other guys are. I assume they're the cast of an obscure movie franchise I don't know.
You have like the Asians and the Irish people, like.
But I really like those weird red eyes. Those masks, those are cool masks.
Those are cool. Those Asian guys, they're just TOS Klingons, right? It's kind of fun that this.
I don't know TOS.
It's kind of fun that we have a Star Wars movie that from Abrams that has at least one thing that reminds me of Star Trek, since everything in his 09 movie reminded me of Star Wars.
Do you guys think it's weird that he's never used the bowcaster before?
Yes. In fact, that made me wonder if I was a crazy person and if the bowcaster was new, even though I knew that Chewbacca always had that. But I was like, Is this a new thing somehow? And I missed it. Did the bowcaster not shoot lasers before?
Yeah, and that's...
One of the...
Go ahead, Dan.
Sorry. No, go.
One of the things that I was surprised about in this movie, and I'm such a Star Wars nerd, that the bowcaster and everything that I had ever seen it in before shot green lasers, and in this it shoots red lasers.
That's wrong.
I just thought it was weird.
At what point did Chewbacca turn to the dark side? When did that happen?
Okay, here's something that's always puzzled me about Star Wars since I was a child, because Star Wars is color-coded. Good guys have blue and green lightsabers, and bad guys have red lightsabers. But in their starships, the good guys have red laser blasts, and the bad guys have green laser blasts.
Oh,
and that always confused me as a child.
Huh.
I really like the line. You said what you thought that was the most Han Solo line, but I think the other one is, "I never asked that question until I do it." When she's like, can you even go to light speed in a hangar? He's like, I never asked these questions until I love that.
I love that it is not a never tell me the odds reprise. It is a different joke that is in the similar vein.
Yeah. Good call. Because we are doing a lot of those other things that just straight up the line. Like, I have a bad feeling about this. Although, don't most of the Star Wars movies have that line, at least somewhere?
All of them.
Okay.
All of them.
So you gotta have
there's a
that
commentary
somewhere.
where George Lucas says, he explains to the listener that I have a bad feeling about this. He's like, it's kind of this thing that we say in every movie. It's like a running joke.
You're like, thanks. I wouldn't have noticed that.
I'm going to be very interested to see what or who Supreme Leader Snoke is eventually, because there's been talk that he, as a character in the Star Wars universe, has been active and been doing things since the prequel trilogy, like even before The Phantom Menace, and like witnessed the rise and fall of the Empire, and he told Kylo Ren all the stuff about Darth Vader that corrupted him to the dark side. It's going to be very interesting
the
to
novelization
see.
the novelization says that he is at least active during the original trilogy, or at least he's observing the events of the original trilogy if he's not involved.
I have a feeling that Supreme Leader Snoke and the First Order are the old Sith Empire returning from out, like, dark space.
I really hope so, because my favorite thing about Star Wars is the Jedi and the Sith and all that history and mythology. And when they rebooted, I was excited because the history of the Jedi and the Sith is a little convoluted, and I was excited for a streamlined new history. Like, I was excited. I was like, oh, I get to relearn these things that I already know, but now they're going to be different.
In the theater, I thought it was I gotta mention this real quick. I thought it was a missed opportunity that the chair isn't actually there. I wanted so badly when he disappeared for the chair to actually be a real chair.
Yeah, and some of the novels and stuff, there have been like mentions of Palpatine sending like teams into space that's not charted, and them finding things out there. And there was like a cult that bought Darth Vader's lightsaber in Aftermath. So that, and the fact that I don't know why the remnants of the Empire would call themselves the First Order if they aren't like the original Sith Empire. I have a feeling that might come true. I might be completely off base.
Well, and we know
really
that
cool.
Luke goes to the first Jedi Temple, or is looking for the first Jedi Temple.
Yeah,
there's two firsts in this
and
movie,
and
it would be way
mystery.
too coincidental for them not. This scene, I hate it. I hate it so much. It's
was
not a
just
necessary callback.
And it's a mystery as to why in the world he needs to go to the old temple. Okay, I don't know why that's a problem. Like they're I get that it's easy to look at that and be like, oh, they're going back to that because it's a thing they did in A New Hope, but like they're on this ship. He would turn that on and wonder what it was. Like, I don't know why that's a problem.
It's just there so that everyone who kind of likes Star Wars and has watched it occasionally over the years can go, oh, I remember that. When you watch all these films together, it is made for this moment in time right now where we haven't had good Star Wars in 30 years.
Okay, I wanted to argue with that earlier, and then we got into other things. Can I argue with you on that point?
Okay.
Okay. The prequel trilogy does not watch well before the original trilogy. Like, it is completely informed by, and I don't want to get into prequel bashing again, but it is completely informed by what you've seen already. So to argue that this is a problem because you just watched 4, 5, and 6, and then you watched this, and like it's weird, like, you know, to think about the 30 years passing. It makes no sense to me that anybody would watch it that way.
I watch it that way. I watch Star Wars like that.
That makes no sense to me.
To watch things all together?
Yeah, like if you watched it all together, I would still watch 1, 2, and 3 after 4, 5, and 6 because they're completely informed by it. Like those movies watch like they expect you saw what came before already.
But I have seen what came before already. Okay, but here's the difference. Those are informed by those films. These are like nudge nudge, you remember that thing. And I just don't think that those are going to hold up over time. Like, it's gonna be like, yeah, I remember that thing. I saw it 2 hours ago, or I saw it 6 hours ago when I watched Star Wars Episode 4. I remember the chess.
I agree with you that some of that is a problem, and I think our disagreement is on which things that's a problem for.
That's fair.
Like we're on this ship. It is a passing the torch movie. The thing is, the distinction between what's for us and what makes sense in the universe. For instance, like keep in mind that this is 30 years after, so there's some nostalgia for these characters, as well as for us. And when it's that, I think it's okay and it works on both levels. Like people complain about the robot with the message thing being at the beginning of this again and being the big thing that starts us on our journey. But who's the person who programmed the robot, and where did he get that idea from? Luke Skywalker would have been inspired by Leia to do that in the first place, so it works.
But Luke Skywalker didn't program that robot or put it in that robot.
He didn't?
No, he just put the data, and then Poe Dameron put that in the robot. It's not even a thing that goes inside a robot. BB-8 just has like a tray that he puts in it.
But you see the flashback with the lightsaber with Luke Skywalker putting or was that with R2-D2?
That's with R2-D2, because R2-D2 has the rest of the map.
Oh, that's
true.
He
doesn't put anything in R2-D2 either. He just like kind of puts his hand on him.
Yeah.
Okay, well then I guess the argument I'm making is bogus, so never mind.
And I think it goes both ways. Like, the fact that there are only X-wings in universe is a really bad decision. Like, that's something that we did because people only remember X-Wings and we're cashing in on nostalgia.
I agree that that's the reason we're doing it. It doesn't bother me like I thought it was going to because I like these characters and I like this. I mean, I'm with Dan on that. Like, that should bug me, and it's not, and I'm impressed with the fact that I like the story enough that I'm not thinking about that stuff while I'm watching it.
there's a guy that
Yeah.
messaged.
I'm also not a big.
Like,
I'm also not a giant Star Wars fan. So if I was a big Star Wars fan, maybe that would bother me. The kind of fan stuff maybe is that sort of thing is more of a problem for me with something like Star Trek. So that's maybe my opinion doesn't count with you guys but then Dan agrees with me. He's a huge Star Wars fan.
I'm completely willing to admit that a lot of my complaints are Star Wars fanboy complaints. The fact that I don't get answers on anything that I spent a year wondering about and theorizing about, that is a fan complaint.
No,
and
I'm not saying that that's invalid, but I do appreciate the fact that you're saying it's a fan complaint. It's not a problem with the story of the movie.
The breaking the universe with jokes, that's a problem with the movie.
Sorry, go ahead, Dan.
I guess we came at this movie from a different perspective as fans, Eric. Like, going into this movie, my biggest question was who these characters were going to be and, like, how interesting they would be, and I got all those answers. That's why.
Well, and I like the characters, but I went in being like, all right, I'm going to find out stuff about the Jedi and the Sith and where Luke has been and what the Knights of Ren are, and I didn't get any of that stuff. Well, and there's a part of it's also that they lied to me in the trailer, and it took me 2 viewings of the film to realize that I'd been lied to. Okay, wait, hold on. My favorite character's going to come up. No, he's not. I'll tell you when he shows up. In the trailer, there's a line in the first trailer where Snoke says, "There's been an awakening. Have you felt it? The dark side and the light." Which makes it sound like something wholly unique and new and different was happening in this movie. Like the Force was evolving or changing. And when I saw the movie the first time, he starts that statement. He says, "Have you felt it? An awakening?" And, like, I just filled in the rest because I'd watched the trailer so many times. And so, like, I complained after I saw the movie. I was like, what is the awakening? Like, we don't get an explanation.
Yeah.
And then I resaw the movie. I was like, oh, the rest of that line isn't there. And I actually know where the rest of that line comes from because it's in the novelization. He says to Kylo Ren that Kylo Ren may be his greatest student because he is of the dark side and the light. So it was actually 2 different lines they stitched together for the trailer. And I spent a year trying to figure out what that line could possibly mean, and it wasn't even a real line.
I love that robot has a 50s microphone in his face. That's awesome.
I want that weird bird-faced person from A New Hope back. The guy who does the thing that the girl did, where like he goes and he talks into the thing. I've never seen that race again, and I think he's really cool looking. But it also looks like he's talking into pool chalk.
I feel like there's a lot of stuff in that scene that's steampunk before it's Star Wars. And I'm okay with that.
I don't know about that.
So, Kylo Ren is one of my favorite Star Wars villains because this whole conflict between the dark and the light, I think flipping that whole dynamic on its head, it's really interesting. But
And I can never think of a time that I've ever seen that done before in a Star Wars character.
Yeah, it's really cool. And I also like that he's Han Solo's son, and he worships Darth Vader, and those characters are the ones that are redeemed in the original trilogy. They have paralleling character arcs, and Kylo Ren has redemption handed to him in this movie, and he doesn't take it. And I think that's really interesting. Like, Han Solo gives him the chance to turn away from the dark, and it remains to be seen whether or not he isn't redeemed by the end of the trilogy, but I think it'd be really interesting if Kylo Ren just stays and goes further down the dark path and is never
he can never be redeemed. Spoiler alert, he kills Han Solo. In the eyes of the audience, he will never be able to be redeemed, and to try and do that is foolhardy. He murders Han Solo.
Mm-hmm.
I just feel like from an audience standpoint, we will never accept him as a good guy. Because
just forgetting audience for a minute, I'm just talking about the story, though. Like, I hope that they don't do that. I'm with you. I hope they don't redeem him, because I think that's much more interesting in a Star Wars thing to have a character refuse redemption. Like, that's what these movies are. George Lucas has said that, if anything, the Star Wars movies are about redemption. And to have this trilogy have a character that is the antithesis of that would be really interesting.
Is it not possible that he doesn't jump back and forth a couple times? I mean, I just thought of that, but if the idea is supposed to be that what makes him really interesting to Snoke is that he's a child of both the light and the dark. I guess he was with the light before, so maybe he won't flop like that later, especially because
I think that's where you're seeing him in this film, is kind of going back and forth and trying. But at the end of this film, after he kills Han Solo, he is all bad, and I feel like we will never accept him being good because he murdered Han Solo.
Well, that's fair. I hadn't thought about it like that. Maybe so. Folks that are assuming that, or that are thinking that maybe he is the protagonist of the trilogy over Rey, I could see it. I mean, I could see them going there.
I wonder, because when you get to the end of Return of the Jedi, it's like that. Well, Darth Vader's not really the big bad; it's the Emperor. We have that big bad Emperor here in this film. I'm wondering if Dan's right, if he will keep escalating, and at the end of this trilogy, there he is. If at the end of this trilogy he will become the big bad, in a way that Darth Vader never did.
Yeah, like he'll go complete dark Luke Skywalker, kill the Emperor type character, and take over the First Order and be the number one Sith Lord in the galaxy.
Yeah, the thing that, and I'm with Dan, the thing I'm most fascinated by is this notion that he keeps being tempted by the light side and is trying to force himself to stay dark, and that the difficult thing is to be dark as opposed to being light, and that completely flips the whole idea of what light versus dark was in Empire on its head.
And I guess we can talk a little bit about it more when we get to Han Solo's death scene, but I love when Kylo Ren tells Han Solo that he destroyed his son because he thought it was weak like his father. Like, he views Han Solo not being, the rebel or the smuggler type that just does whatever he wants and is out for himself. Like, him not being that person made him weak, because he was redeemed by his mother.
Just to jump in, the red guy that Finn sits with, his name is Sidon Ithano. He's the Crimson Corsair. He is my favorite character. He is instantly just super cool looking in that, like, Boba Fett way, where, like, he gets nothing to do, but he's super cool, and he has his own short story. He's a space pirate.
I love that his name is Sidon.
Yeah, and I have one of those pop figures of him. Is the only piece of merchandise I own for this entire film. It's the only pop figure I own is him. Which was really weird because I went to Walmart and it's like Rey, Finn, Poe, Kylo, and Sidon Ithano. I was like, oh, you were made just for me.
I haven't bought anything from this movie yet because I don't collect Star Wars, and if I start collecting Star Wars, it'll become another big collection that I can't stop getting into. Like, I used to have Star Wars stuff when I was a kid, but it wasn't because I actively collected it. It was because I had family members that didn't know what the difference was between Star Wars and Star Trek. So I had a lot of Star Wars stuff because people were like, oh, it has Star in it, and that's the popular one, so they assumed that's what I like. And I like Star Wars, so I played with that stuff when I was a kid. But at one point, I sold all of it to start my Tick collection. And I've had a hard time getting back into it because I just know, like, with this movie, if I get started, I won't stop. I want to collect Rey, like, just Rey. And
it's not hard. There's no merchandise for her.
Well, there is now, and there's about to be a lot more, and I think that's going to get really hard. So I don't know if I'm going to do it, and especially being a trilogy and hoping that she's actually supposed to be the protagonist of these three movies, and that this first movie isn't a red herring about that. I'm assuming it will be an insane amount of stuff eventually, and I couldn't possibly collect her. So
have they course corrected the Rey merchandise?
Sorry, what, Dan?
Sorry.
I was just saying, if anything, in regards to your worry about her not being the protagonist of the movie, I think if anything, Kylo Ren and her will be dual protagonists of the trilogy, and I think that's the ideal outcome for me, because Kylo Ren's my favorite character, but I like Rey a lot too.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think there's any way that, like, Kylo Ren secretly becomes the main character. I think he might be the also main character, but I don't think this will ever not be Rey's story.
I hope not, because she's making, I mean, she's the thing that made me really fall in love with Star Wars again, and more so than I ever had before. Although Jason Aaron helped a lot.
I want to talk about the Force vision when it starts because there's some interesting stuff in here.
Oh yeah, it's fascinating.
Okay, so this scene in the hallway here, there was a little boy in the hallway she runs towards, but it was cut out.
Who is the little boy?
We don't know. So when we see Kylo Ren and the Knights of Ren here, Rey's on the ground and he stabs one of his own men. Why?
I love that there's a guy with a big anime sword. No one else in Knights of Ren have a lightsaber, and one of them has a big anime sword, and I love it.
So the reason I mentioned him like stabbing his own men, it makes me think like, what if Rey was actually at the academy when this happened, and she has repressed memories, and Kylo Ren knew her and like stabbed that guy to save her?
I assume that she was at the academy. But how do you know that's one of his guys?
Well, he was dressed like the other Knights of Ren.
Oh, I didn't really catch that.
I mean,
Okay.
I would assume that was him.
Yeah, that didn't occur to me either. And you know what? You just touched on a really basic thing that didn't occur to me either, which is all of this is personal memories or flash forwards,
Mm-hmm.
and that none of it is her. Although I didn't immediately jump to that because she does hear Obi-Wan's voice, and both young Obi-Wan and old Obi-Wan, and she never knew him. So in the theater, there wasn't any reason to assume that everything she was seeing was stuff that she had that's in her own timeline.
By the way,
I mean,
don't. Sorry.
Oh, go ahead, Eric.
Don't ever let anyone tell you what lines, because Obi-Wan Kenobi, the old Obi-Wan, is cut together from lines from the original trilogy, where
Which
like they
is
have him
awesome.
say different things.
Like it totally
Don't-
works.
Don't ever let anyone tell you what the lines are, because now I can only hear those lines when I hear his. Like it totally worked, and then someone told me what the exact lines were.
Oh, that
I was
made
like,
me think it
now I
was
can hear
cooler that it even worked, and I thought it was fun that they brought in Ewan McGregor for one line. And I saw him on a talk show where he was like, where somebody asked him to say the line, he was like, okay, and so he keeps going places just saying the one line he has.
Well, and it was originally the guy who does him on Clone Wars. They didn't think they could get Ian McGregor, so they had him lined up.
Oh, that's so
and
cool that
Ian
he
McGregor
did it.
was like, "Oh yeah, I'll do that."
Dan and I have talked about this on video a couple times. I hope so much that we get a flashback movie with him.
He's the best part of the pre-trilogy, hands down.
Because, like, I'm reading the Obi-Wan and Anakin comic, and it's really good, and I want that kind of characterization for Ewan McGregor to get to play. Like,
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
I mean, I don't know exactly what it would be, and Dan and I have talked a lot about how, we don't really want it to be set between the last thing we saw him with in 4, but I would like to get him to see him do something.
When we first saw this, and you and I talked about this movie, Cap, you said that you don't like when she asks about the lightsaber, and Maz Kanata says that's a tale for another time. Is that still an issue?
Yeah, initially, it just seemed like the really obvious thing where it was like, we'll get that later on, and it's like, well, what is stopping you from telling her about that right now?
See, and like it's weird, as the guy that walked out being like, I was told nothing. I was like, okay, that's fine. You'll tell me later. Also, there is a short story that tells that story.
Just from a writing perspective, Eric, that wasn't for her. That was for the audience, and I don't like stuff like that.
But she had to leave. She had to run. This is amazing, by the way.
Delivery
She
and-
has
Yeah, I was
so
going to
much
say,
energy in this
we
scene.
would be remiss to talk over one of the best moments of the movie. I love this speech. It's so good.
Well, I mean, it's horrible and evil and sounds like Nazi propaganda, but he delivers it really well.
Yeah. I hope we get a little bit more of General Hux, sort of like how we spent at least some time with Tarkin in A New Hope, and we got a sense of a little bit of who his character was.
Well, here's what I think is really interesting about Hux. One, he makes it, and two, there's that thing between A New Hope and Empire where Vader is subservient and then becomes the big threat.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't accidentally make a military person on par with Kylo Ren this time. Like, it is an intentional choice. I think we're going to see some tension. I think we're going to see some Cobra Commander Destro kind of stuff. Look how cool he is.
They hint at that at the beginning. Like they do have an antagonist. They have an antagonistic relationship, from what we know, at least.
I wonder if it's going to get bigger. My theory, and it's just a theory. Like, it's not like this is really what's going to happen. I really think, but I kind of wonder if we will see a split of the First Order, in which Hux kind of takes all of the military, and Kylo Ren is the religious aspect, and it becomes a military and religious separate thing. Because I don't think these two people can work together.
I mean, I don't know how Supreme Leader Snoke would let that happen, but
I mean, if we're following the train of thought of Kylo takes.
Oh wait, she kills him later on. Okay, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because we have to remember we all think of this as a trilogy, but it's not a trilogy because we're going to make Star Wars movies until the day we're all dead. So I'm really interested to see, because we've never had this before, when we get to episode 9, does episode 10 pick up right after? Does episode 10 pick up, like, do we just keep going with Rey and Finn and Poe?
I doubt very seriously. I mean, I disagree with you. I think they will always be trilogies with other Star Wars stories, things in between.
No. But what I mean is,
yeah.
Are we looking, because regardless of how it turned out, 1 through 6 are kind of supposed to be one story. Are we seeing, will this trilogy be the first half of one story, or the first third of 3 trilogies, or will this be all one story? And then we have another trilogy that jumps ahead, 30 years in time and is a new cast with new characters. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because it's entirely possible that they could pull the rug out from under us and 9 could end like 3, where you're like, oh, things are worse than how they started. And then we have a whole other trilogy where I think it's interesting because Star Wars has never been in this place before. There's never been a guaranteed another trilogy. I'm really interested to see how this...
Is it possible that they don't go directly into 10 and that they maybe even make a series of movies that aren't the regular Star Wars trilogy type movies?
I would love it if
they could do anything, Eric. I don't think that's guaranteed at all.
Well, I guess it'll depend on how the Star Wars stories...
It's guaranteed that we'll keep getting Star Wars movies like we'll keep getting Marvel movies, but I think that they very easily could do some other sort of set of movies. I mean, what do you think, Dan?
Yeah, I mean, I think they'll probably bookend this as a definitive trilogy as one story with these characters, and we'll get them at least to a place where the stories for these characters are pretty much over, like they've reached self-actualization by the end of their trilogy, and then, if anything, they'll do a passing the torch movie kind of thing with a new cast of characters in the next one.
But to Eric's point, it's always possible that you have some character that isn't fully paid off until the end of the next trilogy, like you did with Vader.
Yeah, potentially. But I don't see the
purpose.
potential for any of that sort of thing, like with any of these characters, really. I mean,
well, but
like, what would there be to
know that yet? After walking out of Phantom Menace, pretend it's a good movie, would you immediately go, oh man, that kid's gonna clear, that kid has the potential to be the bad guy of the whole thing?
But I'm just thinking about the characters in this movie. Like, Rey's backstory is clearly quintessential to the story of this trilogy. Like, that's gonna get paid off, or at least I should hope so, right?
Yeah.
Finn's backstory is pretty simple. I don't know that you need to know much more about his backstory, other than, like, his personality, like how it affected his character, right?
Only thing is, you don't know what those characters would do, like, much later in life. They're young enough that there could be other things that happen. Like, I have no idea. And also, just don't forget about Fasma, because, like, Fasma could, like, do all kinds of crazy things.
Phasma could be the Darth Vader of this.
That's right. She could.
Okay.
I'm just kidding. I don't like this part.
Can we? Well, because 1, it should be Phasma.
It should be Phasma.
But 2, so can we discuss? See, I hate this because this commentary is going to be useless the second episode 8 comes out. But do we want to discuss whether Finn is Force sensitive or not? Because in the expanded universe, before we rebooted, he would never be able to do what he just did with a lightsaber. Lightsabers are, like, impossible to truly wield if you're not Force sensitive. Like, you can swing it like Han did in To the Wampa, but, like, there are stories where people who don't use the Force try to use a lightsaber and they, like, cut
Eric,
their arms.
I didn't think this when I first saw it. Because I thought it was so cool to see somebody that wasn't Force sensitive wield a lightsaber. I just thought that was really subversive. But if he's not Force sensitive, I'll be real surprised, because that's the only easy explanation for how he snaps out of his programming at the beginning.
That's true.
He's got to be. I don't know what else it is. I mean, it might be something else. But what do you think, Dan?
Yeah, possibly. I mean, I think Luke's gonna need, if they're gonna start a new Jedi Order, they need more than one new Jedi. So yeah,
That's a good point.
Well, no one can shoot people on the ground with an X-wing without being force sensitive. So Poe Dameron's going to be there too.
I mean, good piloting is a characteristic of someone that's really skilled in the Force. So Poe Dameron could very well be force sensitive too. I mean, who knows?
But Dan, don't you agree?
I could be force sensitive.
Don't you? I memean, you're overly sensitive anyway, Eric. We've always said that about you.
Well, yeah, I have the skin of eggshells.
Dan, don't you agree that it is like really fishy that he like I said with just his personality and everything that he's the only stormtrooper that just all of a sudden pops out, like something's going on there, and I don't know how it doesn't have to do with the Force.
Well, I'm also going to say if he's not force sensitive, that ending fight is even worse.
Yeah, I mean, we'll talk about the ending fight when we get there, I suppose. But I think it works more than you seem to. But
we'll talk about it.
We talked. I mean, this is a while ago, but I wanted to talk a little bit about the Starkiller base and.
You said you had things you like about it. I really love this imagery. Sorry. I really love this imagery. It really reminds me of, which I know is the complaint that I and other people have, that this is just...
You're going to say the Cave and Empire, right?
Yep, the Cave and Empire. I really like it.
Sorry, go ahead,
But
Dan.
because it kind of cribs on the imagery, but isn't the same scene. Anyways, okay, Dan. Starkiller.
So the Starkiller base, I really like it because it's kind of a representation of the dark side, in that it feeds off of the light in like solar systems and destroys them, and it's an unsustainable weapon. Like if you use it enough times, you could potentially just destroy the entire galaxy, and there's nothing left to rule at that point. And it, besides the fact that there's a thing you can blow up in one specific spot to blow up the entire thing, it solves all the other issues that the other Death Star had that led it to be destroyed. It doesn't have to move. It's stationary. So you can blow up a planet from at any point in the galaxy, and it can blow up more than one planet at once.
Wait, what do you mean it doesn't have to move? Once they suck that sun dry, they have to go to another sun, right?
But they can shoot from anywhere in the galaxy. The Death Star has to go into hyperspace and get close enough to the planet.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay.
So you could park that thing in any system and just from wherever in the galaxy destroy 5 planets that you wanted to.
Can I tell you the one change that I think they could have made that would make everyone not as annoyed by the Starkiller base?
Sure.
Don't blow it up. Keep it through the trilogy.
Well, that
Then
was
it
my big complaint.
Is not just the Death Star.
Yeah, I just didn't want, because I really thought they'd do that. The big thing, and this is just maybe a personal thing, I don't know, but the big thing I was hoping that we wouldn't get toward the end of the third act of this movie is a Death Star explodes and the Millennium Falcon flies away from it. And we got that, and I was like, man, I knew they were going to do that.
The Death Star exploding is that in A New Hope, that is kind of the culmination of Luke's journey through that film, and it's his one big moment. The one thing we know about Luke that entire movie is he's a great pilot, and we finally get to see him be a pilot. In this movie, it's just an additional action scene. When the emotional character stuff is happening on the ground with Rey, Finn, and Kylo.
One of the things I wanted to mention before, when the lightsaber was taken out too, who else hopes that Billy D. Williams was somehow involved in that coming back? Like he finds it on Cloud City. I want Lando in these movies, guys. Come on.
My friends and I have a pitch for a scene, what should have been the post-credit scene if this movie had one, of just Lando like on like a communicator being like, "How you doing, Chewbacca?" Hans, what?
So seeing C-3PO here was really funny, like how he pops out in front of Leia and breaks the romantic tension. Here.
Okay, so I said that like over time, as I've gotten older, I don't like R2-D2 as much as I did as I was a kid. I have never liked C-3PO. Even as I was... Yeah, I know some people really like him. I've never liked C-3PO. And the thing that this movie did was when he popped up, I like my immediate reaction in theaters was like, "Oh, I thought I got away from you. I knew that you were in this movie and I forgot, and I was so happy you weren't here annoying me and you have to come in." But he's great in this movie. This is the best he's ever been in the Star Wars movie. He's got a red arm and I didn't recognize him.
And you guys should read the C-3PO one-shot.
X-Wing there, Eric.
Isn't it written by? Yeah, wait, what?
There was the shuttle Leia was in. I was joking with you.
Oh, yeah.
Because the way he gets the red arm is actually really cool, and
Isn't
that's
that written by Brian K. Vaughan?
no, it's not.
Oh, I thought it was written by
Oh wait,
somebody.
is it? I honestly I don't even remember.
I think it is. I remember reading really that person is writing a C-3PO one shot.
I don't think so. Let me check.
It's written by James Robinson.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Oh, okay. Who's
That's
the
what it
artist?
was. I don't remember, but the art's awesome in that.
Is the art maybe the artist is Fiona Staples, who does Saga with Brian?
No,
K.
it's
Vaughan.
not. It's not.
Well, then I'm a crazy person.
Yeah. Well, we knew that. Hey, we talked over it, and I didn't get to mention this, but I watched this with my wife again last week, and she pointed out something I hadn't thought of, which is how does Finn know that Poe is flying that X-wing when he says one hell of a pilot?
He doesn't. He doesn't know him until he sees him.
Oh, okay. So he's just like
because
that.
because if you watch
In the moment, it sure feels like they both know that it's almost like they're interacting with each other in the moment.
No,
right?
because he's surprised when he sees Finn. He's
No,
like,
no,
"Oh,
I know,
hey,
but
it's you."
Yeah, but you're missing the part where I said in the moment. Like
Oh.
when I first saw that, I was like, wait a minute, like they cut it in such a way where it's like they're interacting, but then I have to think about it later. Wait a minute, that doesn't make sense. They couldn't be interacting. So I'm not saying that's really what's happening, but it made me think that in the moment, and that's one of the things that made me think that he has to be force sensitive because I thought that he knew who that was.
I didn't take it that way, and especially because just what he's doing, he's shooting stormtroopers dead center in an X-wing. It actually is really impressive piloting. So I just kind of went with it.
Okay, so Eric, can I do the complaining thing that I have to do in the scene? Why is why is Matt Parkman an X-wing pilot?
I hate it. It took me out of the scene immediately.
I mean, I didn't notice it there, like he's standing in the background, but when they do the exposition about the Starkiller base, you've got two character actors from two Abrams things. Well, Heroes isn't an Abrams thing, but then he was the pilot at the beginning of Lost. It's right here.
But he's also in Alias. He's a main character in
Oh,
Alias.
is he? I didn't know that. But yeah, so you got the guy that plays Matt Parkman, and then you've got the guy who plays the son of the Dharma Initiative guy in Lost. They're both in this scene, and you were taking about Matt Parkman. I had two.
Well, it would be like if Kevin Smith made this movie and he cast it with all original actors and new people, and then in one scene there was Jay and Silent Bob and Ben Affleck and and Matt Damon. It was just this really thing that took me out of the universe for just a moment where I'm like, oh, don't throw people that I know in the background. I know those people.
And I think the reason it's jarring is because I don't know most of the actors in this movie.
Yeah, they're either from Star Wars or they're new.
Yeah.
Or relatively new. I know that.
And it's weirder when it's TV people. I mean, I realize that we've blurred the lines with that a lot now, but it's J.J. Abrams TV people.
I know that the guy that plays Poe Dameron, whose name is it Jason Isaacs? Or is that somebody else? Jason Isaacs. I know that Jason Isaacs, this isn't his star-making role. He's been doing kind of bigger indie movies. But that dude looks different in every single movie he's in. He's like Gary Oldman. You can't tell. I don't believe that he's playing Apocalypse. I know his name is in the credits. I know that they're telling me that he's Apocalypse. I don't believe it.
Well, and I think it's so cool that you've got all these cameos that you don't know are cameos. They don't make a big deal out of them. You've got all these people that popped in for one small role, and they're completely hidden, and it's fun to find out later who played people. I didn't know that was Simon Pegg.
Well, and then one of the stormtroopers is Daniel Craig.
Daniel Craig, yeah, that's so cool.
They've said which one it is, but I didn't look because I don't want to know. I just want to believe that every stormtrooper is Daniel Craig.
You can clearly tell the scene that he's in. You hear his voice.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I'm not going to look for that. I don't want to know who he is.
It's
what?
The stormtrooper that drops his weapon when Rey does the mind trick on the stormtrooper.
Oh, really? That's Daniel Craig?
Yeah.
Yeah, actually, I knew which one it was too, but I wasn't going to tell you because you said you didn't want to know.
Oh, that's cool.
Well, yeah, we were talking over that conversation with Han and Leia, and I wanted to kind of mention some stuff with that I thought was interesting.
Go
ahead. I'd like to know more about what their relationship is like, because I don't know if they're even clear if they were ever married. it seemed like they had been separated for a long time, and Han Solo, because he lost his son to Snoke, kind of regressed as a character and like went back to his old smuggly ways and lost the
maybe even his old wife.
Yeah, like the confidence he had in himself, and being away from Leia wasn't a good thing for him. I'd like to know more about that in the future movies. Like, what caused the disillusionment between Leia and Han and Kylo and his parents?
Okay, so
I love this camera move. When he gets up from that crouch position, I think that's such a cool camera move. I don't know why, but that sticks with me real hard.
I love Adam Driver being cast as this character because he looks so much like young Han Solo in the face.
I don't think he looks anything like Harrison Ford or Carrie Fisher. I think it's a really weird casting choice.
I think he looks just like Harrison Ford, dude. I don't know what you're talking about.
I don't think he looks anything like him. I mean that's whatever, but like I am so of two minds. Like I know you guys have never read The Dark Tower, but there's a point where he has memories and then like other memories that are both true, but he doesn't know how to deal with the fact that there are separate timelines. The way that they deal with his mask and the reveal, I understand that for normal people, they only know Darth Vader, and that Darth Vader wore that mask because he had a breathing problem. And I know that there's like this big thing where like he takes his mask off and he's just a dude. But Sith Lords always dress like this and always wear headpieces like this.
Yeah, I love his costume was so classic, like expanded universe Sith Lord looking. He looks kind of like Darth Revan. A lot of people pointed that out
But they make it seem like he's dressing like that to try and be like a Darth Vader fanboy.
Mm-hmm.
And like,
but Eric, that is what he's doing, and you haven't had Sith in all these years, so these people would be surprised by that reveal.
I know, but it's weird that we act like he's just being a Darth Vader fanboy and that's why he dresses like that. Because historically, for me, and again, all new history, none of what I'm saying is true anymore. That is just how Sith dress.
But
like it's not a Darth Vader thing. It's a Sith
it's
thing.
well after you've had Sith. I don't understand your point.
Because, like historically, that's always how Sith dress.
Right,
like,
but it's not just a reveal for the audience. It's a reveal for these characters who would not be familiar with any of that.
Why wouldn't they? That's history.
Because the Sith and the Jedi are myths. They talk about it at the beginning.
Yeah, most of these people don't think that ever even happened, and they wouldn't be familiar. History's been rewritten.
Yeah, that timeline's a little weird too.
Well, yeah,
I feel like it should be I feel like it should be further away, because.
No, and I agree with you with that. I'm just saying in the context of what we're told in the movie. Yeah. I'm not saying that totally works, but I would have never thought of that as a criticism.
Well, it's just tied in with the fact that Poe Dameron makes fun of his mask, and I don't like it.
Do you guys like Adam Driver's performance in the movie?
I really like it.
Yeah, I do too.
Yeah, me too.
There's things around it I don't like Poe Dameron making fun of it and Stormtroopers, but I really like what he's doing. I just feel like the film's asking us to make fun of him.
At the risk of belaboring something, Eric, I feel like I gotta argue with you about the Poe Dameron making fun of the mask thing. Doesn't Leia almost do that with Vader at the beginning of 4?
She never makes fun of his of how he dresses or his voice. She says something to Tarkin about like his foul stench, but she doesn't do it to Vader. She's disrespectful, but she never makes fun of how he dresses or the
right,
which is the first thing I would make fun of if I was trying to, show somebody I wasn't intimidated by them.
Yeah,
I feel like you're an asthmatic, dude.
No, I totally understand why you're making that point. I would never thought of it.
He's the same way as Darth Vader, though. Like he's this like young kid that is in over his head and wants to be Darth Vader, but he isn't. Like I don't know. I think it's okay to kind of poke.
The problem is nobody knows that.
Yeah, and the movie
I see what Eric's saying. I just would
it
never have thought of it.
because sometimes he is the most powerful person we've ever seen, and sometimes he's barely like this is my biggest issue when we get to the lightsaber fight, is that I don't care if he's not as powerful as Darth Vader. He's had training, like it's someone with training versus someone with natural talent. It doesn't even out. If I'm naturally talented at basketball and I go against a pro that's not great but has been practicing their entire life, you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, and that's a thing I question too.
But if the basketball player was mortally wounded, you'd beat him in a basketball game.
That's a cop out to make that fight make more sense.
Dude, like, they established throughout the whole movie that Chewie's bowcaster, like, blows people back, like, 50 feet with that running gag and stuff, and he, like, walks that off.
Is that what he gets hit by? Because my wife and I couldn't decide how he got that wound.
Chewie shoots him with his bowcaster. Yeah, they show it happen.
Is that what it was? I just couldn't remember and didn't notice it. I'm not saying it's not there, I just didn't notice it.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Dan! I just didn't notice it! I'm sorry!
I mean, I don't know. I think
this is the other one. This is Stormtroopers. It's a robot chicken joke. That's not funny. I
don't agree with you at all. I think that's fine. I don't get your issue with that.
Because it's literally the dark helmet joke. Like anytime Darth Vader walks in a room, everybody like checking their throats to make sure he's not like. It is asking us to make fun of his temper tantrums when we should be taking them seriously.
You mean just they're like popping back a little bit and walking away? Is that all you're complaining about?
Yeah.
Is that a problem?
You wouldn't be saying anything if I was like, I love this scene. It's so funny. I think it's a problem.
No, but Eric, it's not even a big giant. They walk in and am I missing something? Is this different from what you're talking? Because I think I'm a couple seconds behind you.
Yeah.
Like they just walk in and they hesitate and then they leave.
Yeah.
Like if someone was blowing up a room, I would hesitate for a second as well. I don't understand
your cut to it.
So it's really cool to see Admiral Akbar in this scene. I was really happy to see him come back.
Yeah.
Look, Dan, I want to complain some more about that 1 second that we're...
Okay, here's what's weird. What's his name? Whose name I can never remember? Neemnub? Is it Neemnub? I can never pronounce it right, and I don't.
It's Neemnub, I think, but I'm probably pronouncing it wrong too.
He's in this. Lando's not. What's up?
No, I agree.
Well, I'm gonna assume that they have a plan for Lando. I'd be real surprised if they didn't.
It was really weird as the casting for this movie was happening. It's like everyone you have ever known in Star Wars is coming back, except for Lando Calrissian.
Yeah, but maybe not. I don't know. Has Billy Williams talked at all about whether or not he wanted to come? Has there been any discussion from him?
I think he said he wanted to come back, but I don't think he made a big deal about it. And he was just on Rebels in the first season. Right. So he's like, it's not like they're kicking him out.
But I don't know, like I haven't seen him in anything in a long time. Like, is he in good shape? Is his health okay? Like,
he was on Key and Peele a year or two ago, and he looked fine.
Okay, I mean, I saw him at a con a few years ago, and he looked okay. But I'm just saying, there could be other reasons for why he's not here that we don't even know about.
Oh no, I don't think he's in like bad health. No worse than like Carrie Fisher or Harrison Ford.
She predictably got some crap from people about what she looks like. She's aged much better than anybody's given her credit for.
Well, here's what I thought was weird. I don't know, like I've
really gotten into shape for this.
Well, and I've seen Carrie Fisher in things, and I've seen her do interviews for years. So like, whenever I was like, "Oh my God, she got old," I was like, "Yeah, where have you guys been? Like, she's been old for like 20 years."
Because she's an elderly person. What are you gonna do? People get old. And of course, Harrison Ford looks amazing.
I mean, for an old man, yeah.
That's what I'm saying. He's aged really well. I mean, he obviously, keeps up.
Yeah. Well, he is a real life superhero. I don't know if you know that, but he like actually runs like rescue missions in like helicopters.
Does he really?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
He almost died before this movie got made because he took a helicopter up into the mountains to save someone and like things went wrong.
Okay, so can I complain about probably my most irritating like writing thing?
Sure.
I don't like, and I've said this on videos before, but I don't like that they say our son 150 times just so that we can have the big reveal that his name is Ben. It's just not natural. Like, people don't talk like that.
Where they play the pronouns game?
Yeah. That's the best way to put it. They back and forth, they say our son like 4 or 5 times, and I'm like, yeah, you're just doing that for the audience.
As Star Wars fan, or as I guess now Legends Star Wars fan, can I talk about how weird it is that his name is Ben?
I want to talk about that too because I think I like it.
Go ahead, Dan, because you're not talking enough.
Yeah, you aren't talking enough.
I like that his name is Ben. I mean, it's going to be interesting to see why Han and Leia specifically chose that name. But in the original trilogy, if you think about it, like the impetus for all of the triad coming together, Han, Luke, and Leia, Obi-Wan is kind of the person that brings all those people together.
But Han has no respect for him, and Leia has no emotional connection to him.
She would later. She would later once she knew who she was in relation to Luke Skywalker.
But that's not the same thing as emotional connection. She can understand. You're not going to name your son after her.
Here's the thing. I'm really gonna argue with you and say that you got to see the rest of it before you can make that criticism.
I hate that. Well, then why are we doing a commentary?
Well, yeah, I know, but here's why I'm saying. Well, because we can talk about what's here. But the thing is, the way they talk about Luke training Kylo Ren and his relationship with Kylo Ren in connection with his parents, it's like he's a third parent. And I would bet you money that he has something to do with that naming. Sorry, go ahead, Dan.
To finish the point I was making earlier, I like the fact that Kylo Ren being named Ben in this trilogy is kind of the person that disperses everyone away from each other and is the impetus for everyone growing apart. It's kind of flipped on its head.
Oh, that's interesting. I didn't think of it like that.
Yeah, that's interesting. I also had thought that. But none of that is why his name being Ben is weird. It's just that in EU, Luke's son is Ben. So it's weird that there is a kid and he is named after one of the kids from EU.
Mm-hmm.
It's just weird. It's not even a complaint or a compliment. It's just weird for me.
It's also possible that whoever came up with that doesn't know about that part of the EU, because there's no telling how much any of these people have read.
That's true, but Leland Chee knows, and Leland Chee's head of story committee, and I feel like he might have said something.
I'm in charge now, Fasma.
Yeah, that's the one moment where I'm like, oh, that's a little too modern.
And I agree with you, and yet still love it. I don't know why. I think it's funny.
See, this is the thing about my dislike of certain humor in this film is I'm never saying it's not funny. I just don't think it belongs in a Star Wars movie. So, my favorite detail that they keep from the old Star Wars movies, no railings. One end.
Like it's just this practical thing. If you had a big, really thin bridge that connected two parts of a huge room, you would have a railing.
And we're gonna get to a point later because I noticed this in theaters. I was like, oh hey, no railings. Like Empire represent. But then we're gonna get to a point where there are railings, and I was like, oh, but they put railings there. And then I saw these little signs, and I was like, it's under construction. There's only railings because it's under construction. Once they're finished on that area, they're going to take the railings out.
Because they know there will be some really epic fight scenes that are going to take place there.
Yeah.
I think he's already said it, but I also love that's not how the Force works.
Yeah, and I really want Han Solo to show up and say that to Rey at the end during the lightsaber fight.
Sorry, Dan.
I was just going to talk briefly about Phasma, but we talked over that scene. So Phasma, originally I was watching the making of documentary for this movie, which is really interesting. I recommend you guys watch it if you haven't already. It's really cool. But they talk a little bit about the costume design, and I guess the Phasma design was originally supposed to be Kylo Ren's costume, and J.J. Abrams,
that's interesting.
Yeah, J.J. Abrams didn't think it fit the character, and then Kathleen Kennedy came in and was like, what is that? That's beautiful. It needs to be in the movie. So they made Phasma as the Stormtrooper commander, and they didn't know that they were going to have Gwendolyn Christie for that role when they wrote it. So they just had it as the role that it is in the movie, and they cast that actress who's one of the more well-known people, at least because she's in Game of Thrones, actress in the movie, and they're going to write more of a larger role for her in the future, I guess.
Okay, but the problem is that they sold her like Boba Fett. Like they knew that, and they still sold her as this is going to be this cool new character you're gonna love.
I mean, there was a lot of merchandise. I didn't necessarily think that
she was the first character whose name we even got.
What's that? Sorry.
She was the first character whose name we got.
Oh, really? I don't remember that. Interesting.
Yeah, no.
Well, I can see why people complained then, but anybody that was really annoyed that she didn't get any more to do in this, I love that point. Just remember, she started as a costume.
Yeah.
Well, and it's so interesting because Kylo's so based around Darth Vader that the first draft of his costume would be so Stormtrooper focused.
It wasn't like a final design that they were going to go with.
It was just like an idea.
Yeah, it was like one of the many designs that the concept artist came up with, and JJ rejected that for Kylo Ren's costume, and then it got changed.
I'm glad Kennedy asked for that to come back in, because it is a really cool looking costume. I didn't realize she was making those kinds of choices.
Okay.
Yeah, she seemed really hands-on working with JJ in the initial story development of the movie.
Do you think that's probably good? Because she's kind of... I mean, would you agree that she's sort of the, like, Kevin Feige for these?
She's very good at her job. I mean, she's produced a lot of the, I think, Spielberg blockbuster movies, and from what I remember, I might be wrong about that, but she's produced a lot of really successful and great blockbuster movies like this. So I'm glad that she was hands-on with this, and she seems really reverential for the history of Star Wars and what it means and stuff. She seems to get it.
Like I said, my kid is in love with Fasma. He thinks she's the best thing ever. And my wife swore up and down the first time we saw this that she was an android. I mean, that she was a droid.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and it wasn't until, I mean, like, leaving the theater, she still thought she was a droid. She's like, there's nothing in that movie that says she's not a droid. I think she's a droid. And I was like, Sarah, Finn says he's gonna knock the bucket off her head.
Interesting tidbit.
That's something you would say to a robot.
But not off your head. The bucket would be your head.
Interesting tidbit about Phasma's costume, too. In the new expanded universe, her armor is made out of the melted down hull of Palpatine's yacht.
Whoa, that's cool.
Yeah.
There's yachts in space?
There are space
yachts.
yachts.
Like he had like a personal yacht, like, little ship that he would fly around in. It was a Naboo style looking yacht thing.
Well, that's cool.
And in Star Trek, captains have a captain's yacht sometimes.
Yeah, but Star Trek is obsessed with the past, so I kind of assume that.
Oh, okay. I'm just saying, like, there's precedent for yachts in space.
Yeah, but Star Trek can't move past the 20th century, so.
Well, it was extrapolating from the 60s. What do you want? And it does move past that in other places.
We keep playing music from the 90s or from the 20th century and the 19th century. We tell stories from there. We do nursery rhymes. We didn't invent anything. After
we also call things from like the 1700s ancient, which is hilarious. And sometimes even later than that. But this is a Star Wars thing, and we're coming up on what I think is probably the
okay, these are the railings. These are
best.
Construction railings.
They're
great. Only there because it's under construction.
I don't mean to keep bringing up Jason, but I think some of my enjoyment for this movie is just how much fun my kid had watching it, and it's really hard not to have that affect you as a father. And he lit up watching this, and like 4, 5, and 6 we showed him before he saw this, and he didn't have anything like the reaction to those that he did this. And I think it's because Jason has this thing with female protagonists where he just for some reason like really loves female protagonists. I asked him walking out of this movie the first time he saw it, what's your favorite scene? He said, I like it when Han Solo dies. I was like, wow, kid, that's it. But then I thought about it, I was like, no, he's right. It is the best scene in the movie.
Yeah.
No, he is. He's right.
And we saw it 2 more times in the theater, and he kept saying that. He was like, the best scene is when Han Solo dies.
Yeah, I'm with you. I saw this 3 times in the theater, too. I was...
Well, we can't all be Jackson Rasco, who saw it like 17 times or something.
I saw it 3 or 4 times. I don't remember how many. I want to say 3, but I might have snuck a 4th one in there and forgotten about it.
I gotta say, one of the things that I was really happy with, and like this, you would expect this to be a foregone conclusion, but we live in a day and age where you can't take your kids to a Batman and Superman movie. This is a family-friendly movie. Yeah, it's got a couple of kind of rough bits here and there, but I really appreciate.
But Star Wars has always been like that.
Yeah, but it never goes. Yeah, but our sensibilities have changed, where things are more acceptable than they like. We're more desensitized to violence. This I don't think ever goes any farther than Empire did.
See, you keep saying things like that, and I just I look at kids' movies in the 80s, and I just don't agree. Maybe it's not violence. Maybe it's just language. We were more acceptable of language in the 80s.
Now there is a scene in and I see what you're saying. Like there's some stuff in some movies here and there, but I just mean by and large, there is a scene that they cut that would have been the big one that would have freaked people out, which is Chewbacca was supposed to rip somebody's arms off.
Well, we did always get told that he does that.
Yeah,
so,
but that's why they did it. They were going to finally show it to us, and they decided it was too gruesome. Anyway,
did everyone know the second you see the walkway? Did everyone know that he was going to die?
Somehow or rather, I didn't, and it made me feel stupid when it happened.
The second I saw the walkway, I'm like,
Dan,
well, somebody's going down that walkway. And I don't think it's Kylo Ren.
Did you know, Dan?
No, I was kind of just anticipating what this confrontation between the two of them would be like. Whether or not Kylo Ren would take the redemption that Han Solo is most likely going to offer him, you know? I don't know. I was just kind of wrapped up in the scene the first time I watched it, at least.
I was too, and I was thinking too much about all of the parallels, and I think really interesting and not like stupidly gimmicky parallels to the Luke Vader confrontation in Empire. When he said when Han Solo says, you know it's true, I was like, oh man, we flipped this. That's so cool.
Yeah.
And it's cool in a way the flip in, and again, same director, so I have to bring this up. It's cool in a way that the Wrath of Khan flip in Star Trek Into Darkness was gimmicky and kind of silly.
I love the way this scene is shot.
Me too. Now,
now
the moment
and not
that
just
it all goes red, once it all goes red, then I was pretty sure what was going on.
And that's an intentional visual cue.
Yeah.
Yeah. And according to Abrams, is indicative of that he is completely bad at that point. But not just like in a filmmaking standpoint, I love how Star Wars this looks.
Yeah.
Like there's a lot of stuff like in the EU, because most of it's books, that like I kind of visualize looking like regardless of all of my complaints about this film, I love how heavy his helmet is. Regardless of all of my complaints about this film, I do really like this film. And if nothing else, it's because we got 3 really strong new protagonists, a villain that could potentially be a really interesting new villain, and it looks like Star Wars. The prequels never look like Star Wars.
And everything looks like it's really there, and most of the CG is really well integrated.
There's a few too many CG creatures at that bar.
Well,
except for Sedan Athano, because he's the best.
And I didn't get to talk about this earlier. I don't like what Maz looks like. I wish she was a Muppet.
Yep.
Okay, so is this, Dan, where he's going to shoot the bowcaster?
Yes.
Yeah.
He's going to get really angry, and he's going to shoot.
I'm going to watch for it, make sure I understand all the plot points.
How many times have you seen this movie, Cap?
At least 5, so I'm stupid.
Do you now understand that Han Solo dies?
Yeah. I think about like thematic and character stuff so much that my wife makes fun of me all the time. Sometimes I miss like really basic plot stuff.
Yeah, I do that too sometimes.
I do it a lot. Sometimes I get to the end of the movie.
Did you walk out and Jason was like, my favorite part's when Han Solo died? You're like, what are you talking
about? Oh, hey, no spoilers, kid! He's like, you were there!
I love the idea always of children being like the adult in the situation with their parent. You were there.
You idiot! You were there.
Don't tell me it didn't happen. I saw it happen.
Okay, now I'm dumb because I was dumb before, but now I realize how dumb I was because they make it really blatant and obvious. So
yeah.
I
mean, like it's right there.
And he takes 2 to the gut.
Yeah, he does.
It's not just 1, he takes 2. And then he starts hitting himself, and I'm in the theater. I have a hard time not saying, stop hitting yourself.
Okay, but here's my complaint. I know that he gets shot by Chewie. I guarantee you they started this movie and he didn't. And someone was like, no one is going to buy this conclusion. Can you come up with something that makes this conclusion anyway rational? I'm like, well, what if we shoot him twice? I really feel like him getting shot is a cop-out to have this fight go the way they want it. Because it doesn't make sense.
Well,
and really, like, I don't like a couple of the jokes. All of my dislike for this movie comes from this confrontation. And I keep forgetting to talk about it, so I'm going to talk about it now when it has no place. I love that we see a lot of starfighters on planets, because that's not really a thing that we got in the original trilogy.
I also love somebody living in a walker. I didn't get to say that either. Dan, argue with Eric, because I want to hear you fight.
I don't want to fight with them. I'm just expressing my opinion. Dan has a different opinion. That's okay.
Well, one of the things I wanted to say about the scene from the making of documentary that I thought was really cool, this scene in the forest is shot on a soundstage.
Wow.
What they did was they got like all like trees, cut them down, and like got some fake snow and stuff. Like it didn't immediately occur to me in the movie that this was a soundstage. It looks really good.
It looks really good. I never would have thought. Now that you say that, I feel like I can kind of see it, but it doesn't detract from it.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
I have a question.
Like the lighting, you have to work really hard to make that look natural, right? Like when you're on a light soundstage. So once you said that, I'm like, okay, the lighting, they got as close as they could.
Yes,
and there is something, I don't know why, there is something about the blue coming off of Finn's face that makes that feel like a really iconic Star Wars moment to me.
Yeah, it does. I want to talk
about the hitting himself thing. This is a legitimate
Explain
question.
it, Dan, because I love it, and I think he's right about it. Go ahead, Dan.
Well, I think he's trying to hype up the pain and like get into the dark side, like fuel his rage and stuff like that.
Because the idea is that this is a character who is having to force himself to stay dark because he's more naturally going to the light side. So he has to, so that pain has to come from somewhere, and it doesn't come from him naturally.
Okay, except that visually we were just told that he's all the way dark by killing Han Solo, and that's what the director said that is.
Okay, but I don't care what his interpretation is of his own movie. Like that, I don't care
about
that.
This fight is awful. I'm just gonna say it. Finn is a garbage man. If he's not Force sensitive, this fight is awful. He should be taken out with like a single swipe. I understand that Kylo Ren is
get melee training though. In melee,
I don't care. I don't care. Kylo Ren is trained to use this weapon, to use the Force. It's a weapon that's only used by Force users. He should be taken out with a single swipe.
Well,
like,
he's also
anything you can debate on. I really don't like that Finn puts up any fight.
Oh, fair enough. I think it works.
And I'm not trying to say you're wrong. I love that you like it, and I wish I could.
Sure.
I'm indifferent to it. Like, usually when lightsabers start flying, I have a hard time not tuning out. And I'm not saying this scene isn't about anything. I just didn't think about all that stuff. The hitting himself thing in the theater, I had to really noodle. And I don't know if they make that explicit enough, but I think there's enough there that Dan's right about it. But I do really love hearing a little bit the visual symbolism of the dark side being snuffed out by the snow.
Yeah, it is really cool. One of the things I like about that lightsaber fight, I mean, the obvious thing is that it's not as choreographed as the prequel ones. It feels visceral like the original trilogy ones.
Oh,
like
it's a way better choreographed fight. I mean, I know you just said the word choreographed like badly, but like it's a much... It does this great job of being a little bit more heightened than the original trilogy, but not as jumpy and flippy as the pre-trilogy.
Yeah. And it reminds me a lot of what the lightsabers were supposed to be when
they're heavy.
Pitched them. They were supposed to be heavy Claymore, Excalibur type swords.
Yeah.
And they're swinging them like that in this movie. And that's one of the things I loved about Kylo Ren's lightsaber. I didn't really get to talk about it earlier when we were seeing it for the first time. But I really like the design because it kind of calls back to the fantasy roots of Star Wars. It looks like an enchanted fiery claymore, and I think that's really
well. Cool. And if they explain what I don't know if the expanded universe has touched on this or where this came from, but isn't the idea, Dan, supposed to be that it's like the earliest design of lightsabers, and that the two things on the sides that make it look like a hilt, that like those are exhaust ports?
That's a rumor about what that is. That's not a. If you go to Legends, that's not what early lightsabers looked like.
Yeah, but I thought
in this new continuity,
that's what they are now.
That's the rumor / theory.
Okay, I hope that theory's true because I think that's really cool.
Me too, because it ties into the whole thing of the First Order and the First Jedi Temple.
And taking it back to old knights and stuff, which is where all this came from in the first place.
Yeah, I can confirm it for you. There's a Star Wars book called Designs of the Force Awakens that has a I forget what they're called, but it shows all of the innards of his lightsaber, basically. And they do explain that his lightsaber is a really primitive design, early lightsaber, and that the reason he has the exhaust ports is because the synthetic crystal in his lightsaber, which all Sith use to get the red color, is cracked. And that creates extra heat that needs to be vented out through the sides and the exhaust ports.
I knew it was confirmed I knew that was canonical.
Yeah. Oh, so it is officially... That's interesting. Because I love that idea.
Like, that didn't come from a fan thing. I knew Dan told me about it, and it came from something official, but I couldn't remember what he said.
Yeah, it's from a book that shows cross-sections. That's the word I'm looking for.
It's one of those
cross-sections of all the designs from the movie.
And that's very canonical because it comes from what they intended it to be, right?
Yes.
Okay, see, I like the fight up to this point where she's just on the run, and she's just kind of barely getting away. I like that. And then... I don't. She, it completely turns the tide of the fight, and I think it completely takes his teeth out for... if he's supposed to be our villain for our trilogy, we win in the first film. Like, whatever they do next, they're going to have to be like, oh, he's even stronger.
Well, they say that at the end, right? Like, Snoke says he needs to finish Kylo Ren's training.
Yeah, he's not done.
They don't really say this, but I got the impression that he had about as much training as Luke had during Empire. Like, he's not all powerful or anything.
I don't
even though he can do some things with the Force that we haven't seen other people do before.
I don't think he's all powerful. But he was raised in the Jedi Temple. He is far more experienced than Rey.
Yeah, but there's something going on with her lightsaber that we don't understand.
That she doesn't know about. Maybe she has repressed memories.
I love the idea that
we don't know enough yet, Eric. I mean, something's going on with her past.
Keep saying that.
Yeah, well, and you keep complaining about things we can't complain about yet. What do you want from me?
But we can complain about, because in this movie it doesn't work. If they make it work later, great. But in this movie, it doesn't make sense.
Here's why you can't say it doesn't make sense. They're setting up mystery, and you're jumping the gun and assuming that things are that I think it's pretty blatantly saying we're not explaining yet on purpose, have to be explained now for no good reason, because the story's not over yet.
Because it doesn't make sense in this moment, and it's never been how Star Wars has worked before. It's not a matter of not
making sense. We don't have all the information. That is different from not making sense. It's a mystery to our protagonist. She doesn't understand it either. How does that not make sense? It might not make sense later, but we're not done.
Because there is no explanation that will make it make sense.
How do you know that?
Because she doesn't have any training, and he has training.
But she could that she doesn't know about.
Yeah, you don't know that.
She can Jedi mind trick people.
Okay, yeah, and I'm okay with the Jedi mind trick because she's way more willing than Luke was. Like, Luke is really doubtful at the beginning, and she's not. And, so I get that she picks things up faster than Luke did. My issue is that Kylo Ren has been trained in the Force since he was a child.
Okay,
and she just found out that it really...
I kind of understand your complaint that she beats him too easily. I think you're premature in complaining that she's too good at things.
I'm not complaining that she's too good at things. I'm complaining that she's too good at this. Or Kylo Ren is too bad. Because I don't like that he has any trouble with Finn either. If Kylo Ren is either too weak or these two characters are too powerful. I don't know which one it is, but this lightsaber fight does not go the way it should based on what I know.
Eric, and I think we're assuming a lot by saying that Kylo Ren was raised in a Jedi temple too.
Yeah, I don't know where you're getting that from.
One of the things that I think may have caused the rift between him and his parents potentially could have been he wanted to be trained, and his parents were dubious of it because they thought maybe he'd go dark or something. And Luke,
but they say doesn't she say to Han, like, we sent him to Luke because we couldn't handle him?
Yeah, and how late did that happen?
That happened, you know what I mean?
I don't know. I'm just saying he has any training. Like, he's not like Luke in Empire, where he showed up one day, got some
you're right about
that.
And to be fair, like, he has a major position in the Order. He clearly has been around a while.
Yeah, and he's like, I don't know. My major problem with this film is that fight, and then there's little things on top of it. I really like this movie, guys. Like, I don't love it, but I do actually enjoy this film. I can't stand that lightsaber. I love the choreography. I love that that people are. Hey, there's another guy I know in the background, just taking me out of this movie. I love the lighting of the lightsabers, because, like, there was some article I read that's like, oh, he put the lighting back in the lightsabers. Don't ever notice it in the pre-trilogy, because you'll notice that nothing's ever lit by the lightsabers. And it's true. In the pre-trilogy, nothing is ever lit by the lightsabers.
There is one scene in Attack of the Clones where Dooku and Anakin are fighting.
Oh, yeah. But that's because they're in pitch black dark, and that's how they light this scene. But, like, normally, like, the light doesn't play on things like it does in this movie. I don't like that scene.
Eric, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I want to ask you a question. Because I feel like I am much more open to... That's not fair. I feel like I am much more open to this being the beginning of a very unfinished 3-act story, and I feel like you want this to be more of a one-story film than I do.
Okay, here's the thing. Star Wars is not about mysteries. Star Wars has never been about mysteries. We didn't even know that there was a mystery about Luke's father until we found out what the mystery's answer was. I don't like the storytelling device of setting everything up as a mystery so that you know nothing. I wish there was more payoff. I mean, that's the problem with Lost. Lost was a series that was just one big mystery building to a payoff. Star Wars isn't that. And it's never been that until this movie.
I don't know. I kind of disagree with you a little bit. I think there is some mystery in the original Star Wars trilogy.
You disagree with me a lot. I think we see this film very differently.
Sure, yeah, but like, I think in the original trilogy, since you're jumping into a story that's already happened, like, there's a lot of things that the audience doesn't know that you just kind of have to roll with.
But they're way simpler things.
Sure, I mean, but I don't see the mysteries being more complex in this as a bad thing necessarily.
I don't either.
Myself.
I don't mean to gang up on you, but
because I want to know the answers. I'm not saying that I'm critically right.
I just found myself really excited about that in the theater. And I will say again, there are places where I found myself wondering if we needed to keep as much from the audience as we are. So I'm critical about that. I mean, like, once again, I feel like we're trying to make sure that we're not spoon feeding things, and to that end, there are things that should be explicit that aren't, especially political things and status quo in the background stuff.
The political stuff, I think, needed to be more at the forefront of the movie, and like know a little bit more about like what the governing structure of the galaxy is.
Yeah, it's just about telling. Yeah, it's just about telling us how does the government work. Like, it doesn't have to be a political thriller like the prequel trilogy tried to be. I just need, like, because when you say that, some people will be like, well, what, you want it to be like the prequels? No, I don't mean plotting wise. I'm just saying, tell me how things work in the society.
Yeah, there needs to be a better sense of how powerful the First Order and the Republic are.
Yeah, it is really confusing. It like in just going by the film, it is really unclear if the First Order is like the Empire, or if they have like half of it, or if they are a growing force. You really can't figure out what the First Order is from this movie. Also, I love Rey's new clothes. I love that they're her old clothes, but slightly fancier.
Yeah, and I'm sure you guys noticed this in the theater, but the second time I watched the movie, I picked up on the fact that the planet Kylo Ren is talking about when he's extracting Rey's memories is this place.
Yes.
Yeah.
Interesting that she has some sort of connection to this place where the first Jedi Temple is and where Luke's hiding.
Well, it's interesting that the way he interprets it as a memory.
Mm-hmm.
As like, oh, you want to go to this place, and we know she doesn't even realize like water is like a thing, like this much water is a thing.
That's a good point. Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing is it a memory or is it? I mean,
future vision?
Is it a future vision? But then would she have a future vision before the lightsaber? But then she's force sensitive, so we know that that's a thing. So she could have had that. I mean, like those mysteries are interesting to me.
I think so too.
Trilogy.
Sorry, what, Dan?
Sorry. I think it's going to be interesting to see how they do the memories thing, because we see Kylo Ren extracting memories from people.
Yeah.
I don't think it's far-fetched to say that the Force can also repress people's memories.
Oh yeah, sure. I hadn't thought of that. Have we ever done that in anything? I mean, I'm sure there's some.
Not that I know of.
I want to say there's something somewhere where like somebody intentionally represses somebody else's memories with the Force. I want to say I've read that somewhere.
Okay,
but I'm not gonna
Steve is not here to defend himself, but he doesn't like how long this ending drags, and I disagree with him. I think it's great, and I don't think it goes on nearly as long as he thinks it does.
My issue is the same issue everyone else has, because everyone I've talked to has the exact same thing. It ends a shot too late.
I don't agree with that. Not everyone, not me. I don't.
I hate
I've heard that
the spiral helicopter shot. It's not a Star Wars shot. It's Lord of the Rings shot.
I like getting to see that whole island that far off, but okay.
Well, I mean, to be fair, all Star Wars films are supposed to end with a family portrait. But
that's one of my favorite Red Letter Media jokes. And then they stood around for a picture that nobody took.
Well, and it's weird because it's how
this
all
could be a family portrait if that's his daughter, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's not.
What?
I think it's.
Is that officially confirmed?
I thought he officially confirmed recently in an interview that Rey's parents are not in this movie.
He clarified and said that Rey's parents, to her knowledge, are not in the movie.
Oh, well, that means nothing then. Okay, that's
exactly.
Now, what I figured he meant by that... See, now that you said that, Eric, I think you're right, but I still like that shot. Like, I think maybe it shouldn't be there, but I like the shot. Grr!
It should end on her arm outstretched or a close-up on his face. Not that.
And also, Dan, it's hard to make that a family portrait if you're not actually standing next to each other. Like, if you're farther away with your arm outstretched, like that's not a good family portrait.
They don't get along.
You can only shoot it from side profile. Like that doesn't look good.
I know it's gonna seem like something in retrospect that sounds really obvious. I love that there's not an after the credits scene. I was really worried that we were gonna do that.
Yeah.
And that does not belong in Star Wars.
I just think there's too much history with Star Wars to go there, and it would feel gimmicky there in a way it doesn't in the Marvel movies because that's a tradition they started. That's not to say that no other movie can ever do that, or that that's the first thing that ever did an after credit scene. But like the Marvel movies, I would see why somebody would cry foul to not have one because they've all done one, or at least a mid-credit scene. But yeah,
I was worried that they were going to do it here.
Yeah.
And there was even rumors that they were shooting one. I don't think were even true. Like, I don't think they cut it. I don't think those rumors were even true.
Could you almost get away with one in the, like, story?
Mark Hamill's name is ahead of everyone else's in the credits.
That's a thing that happens a lot with cameos at the end of a thing, though.
It's weird.
That's not
and Mark Hamill is Luke.
Yeah, he's kind of important, but yeah, that's not a that's not an issue of billing, Eric. That's an issue of putting all the actors' names up front, and so that's the last person we just saw, and it's like and Mark Hamill, who, if we had opening credits, we wouldn't have been able to tell you was in this yet because that would have given.
Can we talk a little bit about the decision to keep Luke towards the end too? Because I was listening to an interview with Abrams where he was talking about writing this movie with Kasdan, and they both agreed after a while.
Actually, he is second billing, but that's just because they want him with a 3. Anyway, I'm sorry, go ahead.
After a while, after they went through multiple drafts, they had to take Luke out of the script because they said to themselves, well, this just becomes Luke's story at some point. He just hijacks the story away from Rey if we put him at any point in the story other than the end. So that's the reason why he only has that little cameo at the end, and I think that ended up being a really good decision.
I wish he showed up for that lightsaber fight, because I can buy Luke beating Kylo, and because there's been Awakening, that's what draws him out of hiding.
Interesting enough,
I wish that's where he showed up.
In the concept art, Supreme Leader Snoke is supposed to be involved in that lightsaber battle originally.
Wow, that's weird. Does it give us a reference for his size?
Yeah, he's about the same size as everyone else.
Oh, man, I want him to be a ginormous person or really tiny.
Or really tiny, yeah.
I figured he'd be normal size because, like, the Emperor's giant face in Empire Strikes Back.
See, nobody's been talking about that. Like that's the thing I keep going back to is, well, the Emperor likes to make himself giant, and people act like somehow or rather it's different just because he's a head in that. But, like, no, that's a thing that they like to do. Is, like, I tower over you, and I'm, like really intimidating, and you have to look up to me.
I think it's because with the Emperor, it's an obvious projection, and here they sell it to you as if he's giant because it looks like he's really there. And so I think that's what makes people be like, so is he giant?
But
or
I
is
can't
he
be
not
the only
giant?
person in the theater who immediately was like, "That's a hologram."
I didn't call it. Because to me, and I don't know
Okay, well,
why.
I'm proud of myself then because I didn't call that Han Solo was going to die, but I called that. I looked over at my wife in the theater and I said, "That's a projection." She said, "No, it's not. He's a big giant man." And then he disappeared and she was like, "Oh, it is a projection."
But to me, at least like in a fantasy way or a science fantasy way, big means old. Like old things are always big. And so seeing him giant, I'm like, oh, he's really like he is an old being in this universe.
Oh, okay.
So that's why I wouldn't even have thought he was a hologram. Was I was like, oh, he must be like an ancient like dark side person, which he still could be, but he's just not giant.
Yeah. I still wish he was giant. Maybe he has the ability to become giant. Like maybe that could be a Force thing,
like
where
Jason Isaacs in X-Men
wouldn't
Apocalypse.
it be cool? Yeah, wouldn't it be cool if he's a normal sized person whenever we see him, and then they do like a big thing in the third act of the last movie where he gets huge? Sorry, what, Dan?
I was just gonna say, going back to the Luke thing too. I think it's interesting that Episode 8 they had a little featurette that they posted on Facebook about them beginning to film that movie, and it looks like the first scene that they shot was scenes with Rey and Luke on this island, which insinuates that this Episode 8, unlike most other Star Wars things, is going to pick up immediately after the last movie ended.
Yeah, I'm excited
Not necessarily.
about that.
You could pick up 5 years later and be like, well, she's been training for 5 years. Well, maybe not
They're
5
wearing
years.
the same
You can
exact
pick up a...
clothes, and she
are they in the exact same... Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's the same exact costumes and everything.
Yeah,
Well, I mean,
and
she didn't bring a change of clothes.
apparently they just like they made sure and at least had that scene written, so they shot all that on the same day.
They didn't stop shooting. They just handed the reins to the next director and said, okay, continue shooting from where we are. You're making Star Wars Episode 8.
Yeah, they had to do that because that island, Abrams said in an interview I was watching about that location, he was talking about how it's really hard to get the rights to shoot on that island. Like, it's really private, whoever owns the property of that island or whatever. And
It's probably George
It was really
Lucas.
hard
I
for them
assume
to
he owns
secure that
islands.
location in the first place. So they had to do everything that was going to... What's that, sorry?
He just made a joke. It's cool. Move on.
I just made a joke. I said it's probably George Lucas that owns it because I assume he owns islands.
It would have been great if in that scene with Kylo Ren where he's trying to take the memory out of her, if he's like, "I see the island, and there's some rich people that own it that never let anyone film there."
You know, we know that there was a draft of this film. The first draft of this film was under Lucas's eye.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah, that's a whole thing. Because if you look in the credits, there's a third person credited. And he doesn't know why his name's there because none of his ideas are in the script. He is the guy. He wrote Toy Story 3. He was hired by Lucas to write Episode 7 before Lucas sold Star Wars. And when Lucas says, like, I gave them my notes, he had a full script for 7 that he handed them.
Oh, wow.
That they didn't...
Well,
I want to know what that is.
Well, I'll tell you that...
I'm not one of these people that thinks that Lucas necessarily would have done it better, but my curiosity wants to know.
It sure makes sense. My curiosity wants to know. I think that makes his reaction to this movie make a lot more sense.
Yeah, it's not just like, oh, well, that's not what I would have done. Like, he literally had someone make
He had a whole thing and probably hoped that they would do something with it. I don't like, of course, that he makes a big deal out of, when he saw this, he said, well, my Star Wars isn't about people just flying around shooting each other. I'm like, neither is this. Like, that's not fair.
Yeah.
He's like, it's a character drama and it's about relationships. I'm like, yeah, so's this, buddy. Like, I don't know. I don't think that's fair.
Well, and he has that thing where he says...
not even talking about the prequels. Just, that's not fair.
I see... What I think he means when he specifically says fans will love it. Like that was that was when he was first asked. He said, "Well, it's what fans have wanted for years." I think if he did make it, or if he had someone make it, I don't think it would look like this. Like I don't think it would look like Star Wars. It would look like the prequels, where it's a different thing set, so many years later. I don't think there would have been, as many homages and things like that. And I think that the weird thing about Lucas is Lucas would say something like, well, I wouldn't have just remade A New Hope. I would have done something new. And George Lucas does do new things, but they're rarely good.
Well, and he also homaged and ripped himself off all over the prequels.
Well, yeah.
I mean, there's that.
But don't you understand that there is a complex ring theory that makes those films amazing?
Hey, I get that. Anyway, Dan, what else did you want to bring up that you haven't gotten to talk about?
Let me think. I think I mentioned most of the things I wanted to talk about. Kylo Ren was really the main thing because I don't know. I feel like I liked him more than a lot of people did. Like, I've seen a lot of people call him a crybaby and like an emo and stuff.
See, I'm telling you, that's because the movie tells us to laugh at him. I'm telling you, if you took out a couple of those scenes, people wouldn't have had that reaction.
Yeah,
I think that's why people are making fun of him.
But I think that that's very much in his character, and that he's supposed to be that. And I think they walk the line of whininess versus sympathy pretty well.
Yeah, I think he's supposed to be kind of a whiny kid in the same way that Luke was when we first meet him in A New Hope. Like, I wanted to go to Tashi Station to pick up some power converters, like in that kind of whiny way, but like really evil,
But he's not. That's not whiny. He had plans with his friends, and he was on his way to do it. And then his dad, who doesn't ever let him do anything, is like, "No, you're going to go do this before you hang out with your friends." And then he doesn't even get to hang out with his friends because he does what his dad wants, and he comes back and it's time for bed.
You can't have any pudding until you eat your meat. Okay, well that's it. And there's Disney on a Star Wars thing.
Yeah, and there's not Fox.
Yeah.
Okay, I know this is a stupid question, and I'm sure you all know the answer. There's that thing at the bottom of all films, that like circle thing. And it's got a number. Is that the number? Is that how many? Like that is? This is number like 50,000 something film. Is that what that number is? Does anyone know?
No.
I don't know the answer. What are you talking? I'm looking at the screen. I'm not sure what you're talking about.
Okay, at the very bottom of all credits, there is an oval that looks kind of like a globe with like a thing.
And it says number 50155. Well, there's obviously been more than 50,000 movies made, so
is there more than 50,000?
I think so.
Okay, I don't know what that symbol represents.
And
or what
if
the
we're
number means,
and if we're counting them, I want to know what movies we count and what movies we don't count. Because that's crazy.
Well, we don't count any of the Uwe Boll films.
Like how indie do you have to be to not be a part of that number? Like, there's no way that's what that is.
It might be.
I'll have to look it up. I would bet you almost. I'm not gonna do that. I was gonna say I bet you $100.
I wanted to know since I was a little kid, and I just never think to bring it up.
No, I want to know what it is. There's got to be somebody listening that knows what that is. Please tell us in the comments. I want to know that too.
And you know what? It's going to be something really obvious that we should all know, and we're all going to feel dumb.
Well,
he's going to be like, no. There was this.
I didn't know Chewie shot Kylo Ren with a bowcaster, so I already had a dumb moment this evening. All right, thanks as always for listening.
But see, the thing is, you didn't just realize that. You didn't just realize that during the viewing.
I want one time to start ending a video and you not be talking while I'm doing that.
Just introduce me first.
I did that because Dan and I have done all the rest of these together.
I know.
That's the only reason I did.
There's always an explanation. It's fine.
I'm sorry, Eric.
Go end the video.
Everybody, thanks as always for listening. Hope you had a good time. Leave your comments. Let us know what you think of this movie and some of our opinions and dissenting opinions. It's fun to argue a little bit. That was good. And don't worry, we're all still friends. I'm Captain Logan, and this is Dan Torrey.
Thanks for watching, everybody.
And this was Eric.
Dan and I are still friends, and Cap and I are still friends. But Dan and Cap, they're never going to talk again.
Oh, right, because we argued a lot.
Something far worse happened between us.
We'll see you later, folks. Thanks for listening.